Good morning. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. You're looking live there, of course, at the United States Capitol building. Nice blue skies there in Washington, D.C., but I'm sure the temperature is not so nice. It's probably in the 30s, I would assume, because down here in the deep south at Alabama, it was about 28 degrees this morning about an hour ago. So definitely, I'm sure it's nice and cold up there in Washington. Speaking of Washington, today at 10 a.m. Eastern, the GOP Leadership Press Conference will take place. We're also hearing, of course, that the Vice President, Vance, will deliver an address, a speech in Allentown, Pennsylvania. That slated for, according to local reports this morning. So if we're live on the air during these times, of course, we will be bringing that to you as well. And tonight, the president will participate in a Hanukkah reception at the White House. Speaking of the president, he will deliver a speech on the economy on Friday night in Rocky Point, North Carolina. So that's just some of the housekeeping orders for today and also for Friday night, as we are just now less than 10 days from Christmas, of course, 9 days out until Christmas Day. Looking forward to it. Those of you that celebrate, which is the majority of the country, of course. But what we do know is that this week has already kicked off a lot of news stories, as you guys have seen. Yesterday, of course, if you joined us, we were tracking so many stories nationally and internationally. A lot of them just breaking news and developing news over the past 24/7 news cycle and just the past recent days. A lot of tragedy, a lot of heartache, a lot of terrible stories. But unfortunately, that's part of the thing that we do in news, is we share what's going on, but also from a perspective that isn't just, hey, look how horrible this is. There's solutions for this terrible stuff that we see out there. One would be getting saved, right? Being on the right side of history when it comes to our faith. But outside of that, if it's not something you're involved in, you don't want to be involved in a faith, that kind of thing. But how about just for freedom? How about for freedom and the Constitution and law and order and all of the things, all the right decisions, stopping mass migration, that kind of thing that's been happening in Europe. And we're seeing things happen here that are very concerning. So we know that at this point, we'll have a number of live events here this morning on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Also, a few stories that we are following, including any more details out of Colorado for the hopeful release of Patriot Tina Peters. So a bit later in the broadcast, depending if we are live in Pennsylvania with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, which I believe that's the live picture there, possibly at JBA, or that may be in Allentown at this point. We know that the Vice President will be speaking there. And we're hearing that is the Vice President's plane there. Director, if you get a chance to know if that's in Pennsylvania or if that's at JBA in Maryland. But in the meantime, we know that we'll be hearing the Vice President speak sometime this morning. And if we're not live, we always upload various coverage as well. Okay, we are hearing that is in Pennsylvania. So most likely, it's probably Allentown, the Allentown airport there, as the Vice President will deplane. And as soon as we see that, we'll take it there live. Maybe he'll talk to the press, who knows? But we will keep that on our radar. We're also keeping, again, the GOP press conference slated for 10 this morning. And then later tonight, again, the president will participate in a Hanukkah reception at the White House. And then he will speak in Rocky Point, North Carolina on Friday night, another speech about the economy and the agenda there for the administration. So that will be on Friday. We'll have that as well here. So you can count on us for a lot of the live in the moment coverage, of course. And in some cases, if we're not live, of course, we will upload that video so you can see throughout all of our social platforms. All right, so a bit later in the broadcast, as I was speaking about Patriot Tina Peters, the lawyer, Peter Tickton, will join us a bit later. And also the CEO of the Flag Shirt, Steve Stern, will join us to talk about Tina Peters and a huge election security call scheduled for tomorrow. This is one of the biggest calls that they've had. The list of people that are on this call are amazing patriots, and it's all about voter reform and election security and what's needed And we're going to hear from Steve Stern more about his thoughts about Tina Peters and the situation there in Colorado, and also about tomorrow's huge call that he and Raj have put together. And it's something that they've been doing faithfully for how many years now? But it's a huge Zoom call. I believe it's on Zoom tomorrow, and we'll give you the details on how you can listen in on something like that, or at least watch it later. I believe it's Stern American is where you can watch it on Rumble tomorrow. So again, 11:15 this morning, Peter Tickton, the attorney for Tina Peters, will join us, 11:15 a.m. Again, if we're live with the vice president, we'll be able to record that interview and air it as soon as possible. And then also at 11:30 this morning, businessman and church deacon and a patriot, Mark Lynch, will join us. He's running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. So a lot this morning as we are live here. You're looking live in Pennsylvania as we await the vice president to deplane there and then head to his speech. And as soon as we see that, we'll take you there as well. We'll also possibly be bouncing from the GOP press conference over to the vice president's speech. We'll just see how things pan out over the next several hours. Again, as it's Tuesday, December 16th. All of it brought to you by some great sponsors, including All Family Pharmacy. You know, here at RSBN, we always try to point you toward those companies that actually support your freedom and give you those real choices. And that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy, they're different. They give you the options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. This is when everyone can unfortunately get sick. So why wait until someone is miserable and then you're scrambling for those appointments or pharmacy lines? Instead, you can have everything you need at your house through All Family Pharmacy. Things like antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements. All doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. And, you know, while you're out doing that holiday shopping, if you're still doing that this week and maybe into next week, of course, there's nothing wrong with adding a few essential medications your family might need. So you can stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this holiday season. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code. You'll get that 10% off with All Family Pharmacy. Let's shift over to monetary gold. Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm. Many now say that gold could actually climb to $7,000 per troy ounce before the end of President Trump's term. And it's not wild speculation. Experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers are tracking the indicators: soaring national debt, unchecked government spending, and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. So what's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. They recognize the pattern, and they know that paper currencies eventually fail. So gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history. That's why we rely on monetary gold. With more than 25 years in business, an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, and top 5 rankings from Consumer Affairs and Retirement Living, they've earned this reputation of trust and expertise. Their specialists bring more than a century of combined experience helping Americans safeguard their savings. And if you've been waiting for the right moment, you're looking at it. Don't sit on the sidelines as the dollar continues to weaken. Silver and gold remain time-tested assets for defending your purchasing power. All you have to do is call 888-617-7994 or go to rsbnforthegold.com today before the next major move in the gold market. Results can vary. Always consult with your financial and tax advisors before investing. Monetary Gold, you get that free info kit, rsbnforthegold.com. Let's go to Kalshi. One more sponsor for you, kalshi.com/RSBN, the college football championship winner, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, or maybe another team. Who knows? We'll see. There's a lot to either bet or trade or just check out polls. You can do that at kalshi.com/RSBN. You can go to the QR code. You can download the app. So many ways to check it out. More than 1 million users on Kalshi, that number growing. Another great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, it's 9:13 this morning. If you're just joining us, good morning. Welcome again to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. What we know is that we're looking at a live picture there from Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. The Vice President to speak at an event there in Allentown. I believe this will also be about the economy. So once we see that live picture, we can take you to the vice president. Also at 10 a.m., there's a GOP Leadership press conference. So depending on which one's happening at what time, we'll roll with the punches here and give you the live coverage. Again, tonight the president will participate in a Hanukkah reception. And then speaking of President Trump, he will deliver a speech on the economy on Friday night in Rocky Point, North Carolina. Again, for those of you just joining us, we're tracking a number of stories out there, especially the hopeful release of Patriot Tina Peters. A bit later in the broadcast, we'll have the lawyer for Tina Peters, Peter Tickton, join us. We'll also have the CEO of the Flag Shirt, Steve Stern. He'll join us to talk about Tina, and also this huge election security call that is scheduled for tomorrow. At about 11:30 this morning, businessman and church deacon and patriot Mark Lynch will join us. He's running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. So a lot going on just on this Tuesday. Of course, yesterday, if you joined us, the amount of stories happening nationally and also a number of other things that we've seen internationally, just very, very tough stories, of course, to cover, but it's what's happening out there. We bring the information to you, and also some commentary, of course, from that lens, that perspective of God, family, country, freedom, common sense, truth, justice, and the American way. In the meantime, my name is Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for streaming in. We've got a lot going on this morning. We have coverage tonight as well. It's Tuesday, December 16th. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Matthew Alvarez, looking live there in Washington, D.C. You know, on the fly, why don't I just check the weather there? I'm sure my guess is it's 33 degrees. It's 34 down here in Alabama where we're located. So let me double check Washington, D.C. Again, I believe it's going to be freezing up there. Actually, it's 25 degrees in our nation's capital. We know that the vice president will be in Pennsylvania, is actually on the ground in Pennsylvania already, has not departed or deplaned Air Force Two yet. He'll be speaking in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We're told from a Vance spokesperson that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer will travel and are with the vice president and the second lady on that trip to Allentown, Pennsylvania. So a number of pre-programmed speakers along with the vice president coming up a bit later in the broadcast. In the meantime, again, 10 a.m. will be the GOP press conference. And then also tonight, President Trump will deliver a speech and participate in a Hanukkah reception. President Trump will also speak in North Carolina at Rocky Point, North Carolina on Friday night. So just a lot to juggle right now, but we're here with you, and we're glad you're with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, keeping tabs on a number of stories out there, but what we'll do is today's a lot of live coverage, so we'll be going from place to place. We'll definitely be going right there. We're in Pennsylvania. As you see the bottom of the stairway of Air Force Two, where the Vice President will be deplaning shortly. And then also, we'll be at the White House tonight, of course, for the President's event there for the Hanukkah reception. Also, we'll go to Capitol Hill this morning as the GOP press conference will take place. And we also have a number of live interviews for you. At 9:30, any minute from now, possibly a little bit earlier, Steve Stern, the CEO of the Flag Shirt, will join us. He'll talk about this election security call that they're going to have tomorrow. It's a huge one. And also his thoughts on the Patriot Tina Peters, who is still in that jail in Colorado. We'll talk to Peter Tickton, the attorney for Tina Peters, a bit later in the broadcast. And then also at about 11:30 this morning, we'll be speaking with Patriot Mark Lynch. He's joining us from South Carolina as he's running for U.S. Senate in the Palmetto State. So looking forward to all of that. It's 9:20, Tuesday, December 16th. Thanks again for joining us on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to a few of our sponsors here on Right Side, angelpaste.com. You can use that RSBN promo code. You'll get quite the discount off by going to angelpaste.com and using the RSBN promo code. There's a number of great products there, including the flagship product right there on your screen, the Miracle Cream, but a number of other great products too. So there's just a lot that you could choose from, but also great Christmas gifts. And if it doesn't get there before Christmas, I'm not sure. Let's see. It should. You know, it's December 16th. You still have 9 days until Christmas. So go to angelpaste.com. Great Patriots there in Spring, Texas. Also, CovePure.com, a great product here as well. Drink Pure, Live Pure, Cove Pure, $250 off for a limited time. This holiday sale is great. It's a filtration system that takes out 99.9% of all these kind of chemicals and stuff that's in your water. It cleans it up, and it makes it taste better because it's less of the junk and more of the good stuff out of the tap, right? As you see there, you can have cold, warm, or hot water as well. That comes out of the spigot there. And also, again, it tastes healthier. It is healthier. And on top of that, it's cleaner. Who doesn't want that, right? I know I do. We definitely have a filtration system, and we know that covepure.com/RSBN is the place to go for this one too, because at the end of the day, if you'd like tap water, cool, but if you don't, this is a great option right here. covepure.com. Drink pure, live pure, Cove Pure. Let's go to Vance AI as well. If you knew that the ChatGPT and others, they can now reference all your past conversations, and not a lot of people feel comfortable with that, but the solution is with this. Vance AI, first of all, a beautiful display. It lets you use AI without handing over your sensitive information. It utilizes this leading open source AI model to deliver text, code, and image generation to your web browser. And there's no downloads, no installations of anything. They don't spy on you. They don't censor the AI. The messages are encrypted. And your conversation history is stored only in your browser. So AI can be extremely valuable, but we shouldn't need to give up our privacy to use it. I checked it out the other day as well. Vance AI was quite easy, efficient, and another up and coming when it comes to personal assistance and all the things, right? So vance.ai/RSBN, check it out. You can do that now if you'd like on your phone. Now, if you're watching us on your phone, you can still try and check this out, maybe on a different phone or a bit later in the broadcast. Vance AI, great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, so those of you just joining us, it's 9:23. Let's take a quick live look there and just listen in on just the scene there. Maybe there's a wider shot that we have. If we don't, let's just listen in Allentown. We'll be right back here on Right Side.
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
About.
All right, so you're looking live there in Pennsylvania and then also on Capitol Hill and at the White House. So 3 live locations as we are monitoring the latest here on Right Side Broadcasting Network when it comes to live in the moment, the fluid situations as you call it there in the media right now. So on the top left of your screen, that is Allentown, Pennsylvania. The Vice President will be speaking there along with Congressman Ryan McKenzie, Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer of Labor, and then also the Second Lady, Vance, will be accompanying the President on that trip. So once we see the Vice President speaking, we will take you there live in Allentown, Pennsylvania. The bottom left corner, that is for a 10 o'clock GOP press conference a little bit later in the broadcast, of course. We'll have some live interviews from now until then. And then the bottom right corner is for tonight as he will participate in a Hanukkah reception. So all 3 live pictures are the 3 live elements that we will be covering today. If there's any breaking news or anything else that pops up, sometimes that happens. I'm not sure if we have a live picture of the stakeout location at this point outside the White House, but sometimes we have various staffers, maybe even Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, steps up to the microphone there outside the West Wing, and we sometimes go to her as well. But in the meantime, let's go to the great Steve Stern. He's the CEO of the Flag Shirt, and he joins us now to talk a lot about election security and also Tina Peters, the great patriot. Steve, thanks so much for joining us on Right Side.
Well, thanks for having me. Want to thank everybody for coming on today and also wish everybody a happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We've done many shows yesterday and today and talking about our election security call, which would be the largest ever. So a lot of people ask us, how did this all happen? Well, you see a couple of pictures of President Trump and myself. And about 2 days before the 2022 election, I was up there talking about precinct strategy. And we've talked about precinct strategy on your show, and we want to let everybody know for Christmas, why don't you get a nice book that Dan Schultz wrote on precinctstrategy.com. And if you go to www.precinctstrategy.com, it's tied into the election security. I'm the vice chair of Broward County Republican Party. There's 400,000 slots and 200,000 people involved. That's terrible. We should have 400,000 people involved. I'm going to tell you why that's not happening. So I was up with President Trump 2 days before the 2022 election, and I went up there to ask him to talk about getting people involved in his rallies, which he did. And he asked me a question that kind of changed my life. He said, what do you think about the 2024 election? I said, well, look, we still got problems out there. We got illegal aliens voting, on and on and on. He said, Steve, I know you do this precinct strategy Zoom. Why don't you tie an election security call into that? Well, I said, Mr. President, I really don't know much about election integrity, the people who are involved. He said, well, go to it. So I spent about 5 weeks. I got 100 different people. I asked all my friends who were the top people on. And tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, now many people come on our election security call. And why do we have it? So we have it to inform people what's going on in every aspect of every state. If you want to come on tomorrow, very simple. There's many ways to come on. If you want a link, send me an email, stern1054@gmail.com. Yesterday I was on Steve Bannon, got over 100 people. I called every one of them. And every person that I got a hold of said, Steve, why are you calling me? That's very nice of you because you're a celebrity. I said, no, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy on the street that's working hard to save this country because we don't have enough people doing it. So if you want to come on, you go to stern1054@gmail.com. We're going to tell you who's going to be on. Or you go to Getter, or you go to Stern American Rumble. Very simple, Stern American Rumble. If you go there now, you'll see all the back issues, and tomorrow, 1 o'clock, we'll be live on there. Now, how do we get 7 million people? Because Steve Gruber, who's going to be on tomorrow, I was on a show about 6 months ago, and he asked me, how do we do this? Well, very simple. While we were doing this for about 2.5 years, we just had it on Zoom, like we're on Zoom today. And I got on Steve Bannon in the morning about 1.5 years ago, And I put my email on the bottom of the screen. We got 1,000 people sign up. Then he says, Steve, I'm going to do you a favor. He said, you're the hardest working 83-year-old guy. I'm 84 now. And so if I can do it, everybody that's listening can do it. He says, I'm going to put you live on Getter and on the War Room. I said, that's terrific. So Maureen Bannon called me the next day and said, hey, we had 60,000 people on the stream. And I said, oh, why didn't I think about this before? So we started calling podcasters. And, I spoke to you and many, many people. We have 150 podcasters streaming this. We have Getter. We have Rumble. We have X. We have Cloud Hub, Lindell TV, Stern American Rumble, OBBM Network, and many, many people helping us. And every month we get new people. So tomorrow we're going to have over 20 speakers. And we're going to lead with Cleta Mitchell. Cleta Mitchell, Election Integrity Network. She is my hero because she's been doing this for a long time. She was an attorney. She has a big network, and she's going to let us know what's happening, the latest in election integrity. She has a Zoom every Friday and brings information out to everybody on that Zoom, and then we bring it out to the public. Then we're going to have Peter Tickton. You mentioned Tina Peters. Well, you know how much, I've spoken to her 3 times in the last 6 months from prison. Now she's in solitary confinement. And this morning I got a text from a guy who called Governor Polis, and here's his number, 303-866-2471. Yesterday alone he called 36 times. And we want everybody in this country to call the governor and tell him to release Tina Peters on the pardon that President Trump gave her. Now, how did that happen? Well, Peter Tickton sent a 7-page letter explaining to President Trump why she can be released. Now, why they didn't do this a year ago? Because everybody knows, well, I shouldn't say everybody knows who Tina Peters is. They don't. And that's one of the problems. So the more people we can expose, she's a 70-year-old mom, actually a Gold Star mom. She worked for the Colorado Election Commission. She saw the fraud. And she tried to expose it, and they got her, and they said she did this and that, and they sentenced her to 9 years in prison. Now, that's the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard in our life. And, we have fought every election call, every program I'm on, we ask people to get behind her. And just look her up. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but look her up. So it's very important. So Peter Tickton will give you the latest that's happening that's going on. Steve Gruber from Real America Voice will be on tomorrow talking about what's happening in Michigan. Marley Hornick, CEO of RealAmerica.vote. She's going to be talking about all the New York and Pennsylvania things that are coming on. And, if you got to go live any place, just let me know real quick and, we'll get off the thing. We're going to have Andy Thompson on. Andy Thompson is going to tell you how the 2024 election was stolen in Nevada. I'm not going to give away all this stuff, but come on tomorrow, you'll see it. We're going to have Steve Gillen. I love the guy. He is the director for political affairs for Project Civica. I started working with him when he first started a couple of years ago. He's getting people in New York to run for office. There were 32 senators and congressmen that nobody ever ran against the Democrats. He's spending thousands and thousands of dollars advertising all over. And the one nice thing he's doing in Brooklyn, I'm from Brooklyn originally, and we've turned to a great Republican chair there, and we're trying to help it. We're going to have Dale Richardson on. He's in Canada. A lot of people don't know what's going on in Canada. He's going to be talking about how they're shutting down free speech in Canada. Terrible thing. These are our friends. Many people go up to Canada and visit, and they're very, very loved people, but the government is so socialistic, it's ridiculous. Linda Sinkowitz, fightvoterfraud.org. She is one of my favorite people. I've had her on many times. I got her on many programs. She's in Connecticut, exposing all the fraud in Connecticut. Every time we have an election security call, we have a podcaster on. We're going to have Dan Spariglio from The Voice of the People. He gets millions of people on, and he got me a friend in London who is going to stream this, and he has spread this all over London to be on tomorrow. So we're in 58 different countries. We have a special guest tomorrow. It'll be Stephen K. Bannon, and another special guest, Wayne Root, and a very special guest, Kerry Lake. So we haven't heard from her in a while. She has agreed to come on, along with Emerald Robinson, Joe Hoft, Colonel Conrad Reynolds, Kimberly Fletcher from Moms for America. So there'll be 22 speakers on there. It's going to last from 1 to 4:30. And a lot of people don't realize, and you do, because you know what it is to put a production schedule together and have everybody come on time. So this is going to be terrific. And, before we get off, I want to let you, ask a couple of questions. We have a lot of people helping us. Melissa Katz in Texas, we had her on last time. And again, I want to make sure everybody goes and sstern1054gmail.com. And you see I'm wearing my lovely flag shirt. We're the largest patriotic website in the world, theflagshirt.com. Great Christmas presents. Before we get off, I want to give you a chance to ask some questions. I know you always have some great questions to ask.
Definitely,
Go ahead.
Steve. Well, Steve, first of all, and then Mike Lindell adding to that list as well, being on the call tomorrow. This is a huge call. Before I ask the questions, if you can stand by with us, the vice president just landed in Pennsylvania, so we're going to take a live look at that. Steve, can you hang on the line with us? You have a 10 o'clock interview, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm good till 10 o'clock, so 9:55, so I'm glad to hang.
Okay.
Yeah, and
we'll
Mike just announced being running for governor of Minnesota, so that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to come right back to you. So if you could please hang tight. Well, let's go to the vice president right now in Pennsylvania. Okay, so we'll go right back to Steve Stern in just a second. What we're seeing there actually is Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. So the vice president will be boarding Air Force Two there, heading to Pennsylvania, along with a number of other White House staffers and the Second Lady, Usha Vance. So let's go back live to JBA. We'll see the vice president board the plane and take off, and then we'll go back to Steve Stern to complete that interview. Also at 10 this morning, a GOP press conference from Capitol Hill. You're watching RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Let's go back to JBA.
Hey guys, good morning. I managed to walk through that patch of black ice without busting my butt, so it's a good start to the day. We're excited to be back in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about all the things that we're trying to do to lower prices and make life more affordable for American families. We know people suffered a lot under the policies of the Biden administration. We're working very hard to correct those problems. I think we've made a lot of progress over the past 10 months, but of course there's a lot more progress to be made. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm excited to be back in Pennsylvania. We'll take some questions on the other end, but you guys should get inside because it's cold out here. See ya.
All right, it is below freezing there at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. So the vice president and others boarding Air Force Two on the way to Allentown, Pennsylvania for a speech. We most likely will be live this morning for that speech as well. If not, we can upload that. But also you're looking live at the GOP Leadership press conference that will be slated to start in about 19 minutes. Before we get back to the CEO of the flag shirt, Steve Stern, the great election security guru of sorts, bringing together so many great people for election security. We're going to get back to him and his thoughts on the Patriot Tina Peters as well. Before we do, let's go to All Family Pharmacy. You know, here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices, and that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings, this is when everyone unfortunately can get sick. So the question is, why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? Because All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need: antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements, all doctor reviewed and delivered straight to your door. So while you're out doing some holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong, of course, with adding a few essential medications your family might need, so you can stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this holiday season. It's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use that RSBN 10 promo code to get that discount. Let's go to mypillow.com. Speaking of discounts, up to 80% off using the RSBN promo code. Always good to order from Mike Lindell over there at mypillow.com and just /RSBN. A lot of great products, as you guys know, more than 2,000 products for you to choose from, and get it in time for Christmas. We're still 9 days out. So hopefully you have a few items in mind, or just go peruse the website, mypillow.com/RSBN. If you'd like to donate to Right Side, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801 or go to rsbnetwork.com/donate as we grow and expand here in conservative media. All right, let's go back to the CEO of Flagshirt, Steve Stern, as we await that GOP leadership press conference. Steve is very busy today doing live hits on various networks, including ours. As we know that tomorrow, Steve, let's just, for those people that just joined us, can you talk to us about this 1 o'clock tomorrow? Because this election security call is probably the biggest in precinct strategies history, with a laundry list of people that are saying all we want is free and fair elections, right?
Just came in at the last minute because he had a throat problem and he didn't even know if he could speak. And so we just got him in yesterday. And the greatest thing is he's running for governor of Minnesota. I want to make sure that everybody supports him. And the reason he lost 80 box stores, you know, I'm going to be celebrating my 72nd year in business. Now, people don't realize, you know, I started when 12 years old when I was in Miami with my father. And many people say, where do you get all this energy? You know, at 84, I should be out on the golf course and not working on this thing. And I'm working 14 hours a day because, you know, people have to have a voice. And we want to make sure that everybody has a voice. And I got to tell you a funny story about Mike. When I met Mike, I called him cold. And the first thing I said to him was, this is Steve Stern. He said, who are you? I said, well, I buy your towels. I love your towels. Now, you know, as a businessman, when you start to say somebody, hey, I love your towels, you got the best towels in the country. And I believe it. And he says, Steve, what do you want? I said, well, I want to talk to you about precinct strategy. He says, what the heck is precinct strategy? He had no idea what it was. And he called one of his girls and said, Steve, wait a second. Let me get one of my girls on to listen to this. And once we finished, he says, Steve, I want to have you and Dan Schultz on the program tomorrow. He says, I got to get behind this. So he has been behind precinct strategy. He was the first guy to endorse it. He called President Trump and talked about it to him. He called General Flynn and many other people who endorsed it, because it's so important how this ties in. And a lot of people don't understand when you become a precinct committee man or a woman, what you actually have to do. So every county in the United States has a Democrat, Republican, executive committee, town committee, some kind of committee, as well as clubs. And what you do is you get candidates elected. You go out, you get candidates elected, which is so important today, because in the 2026 election, if we don't get the congressman elected, we are going to have big problems. So you got to get out there and join. And if you want to join, you go to your local Republican Party. You can look it up on Google, just look it up and get involved. And what you do is you go to meetings. They usually have meetings every month or every other month. And I've been in it for 25 years. I've seen a lot of things happen, pro and con. And like we were talking about, people join, they quit, you know what I mean? You can't get involved in this thing about, well, I like this guy, I don't like this guy. You got to do a job. And unfortunately, we have like 280 people in the Broward Republican Executive Committee, among also 16 clubs. So I'm in charge of all the clubs around this. And that's what started to turn more people to Republican, because we went out and knocked on doors. We're sending out emails. We do fundraisers. So when you have the meeting, you get to vote. You can make phone calls. You can knock on doors. There's many things you can do. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have time. Everybody got an hour a day. A lot of people don't understand. They say, Steve, how do you do everything you're doing? How are you in business? How do you do the election security? How do you do the precinct strategy? Well, if I'm watching a football game, I'm texting people. And the greatest thing was I've texted 3,000 individual people over the last week about election security call, because I think it's so important. And why was it important? Well, when President Trump won the election, I got texts from Susie Wiles, from General Flynn, from Wayne Root, from Steve Bannon, from many people, as well as, you called me and said, hey, they did a great job. And, RSBN has been behind us 100%. And we appreciate that so much, because we need everybody to get behind it. I can't be a one-man show. We need everybody to get together. So what they said was, and I was, I said, well, how did all this happen? Well, it said, Steve, you were responsible to getting 40,000, I don't know how they figured this out, but 40,000 poll watchers and poll workers, because I did 150 programs of different podcasters, of, many, many programs, and asked people to get involved in poll watchers and poll workers. And they won the election because we had 200,000 poll watchers and poll workers rather than 100,000 on the last election. So that's what we happened. And then they said, look, we know a lot of people learned a lot from your podcast, because they didn't understand, anything about the machines. They didn't understand, technical aspects of everything that go on. So when we bring these people on, they report it. Look, I'm just the average guy bringing everybody together. And that's the whole key. I mean, I'm not an expert or anything, so we bring the experts on. And these people spend days and hours doing this stuff, and they are experts. And the bad thing that happened was, even though we won the presidency, we lost a lot of down ballot elections because of the way and we could tell in California. Just give you an example, in Orange County, California. You remember that we lost 3 Republicans in Orange County, which is the only pretty much Republican area in California. And how did this happen? Very simple. On election day, we won the election. A week later comes 10,000 ballots. Where the heck did they come from? And now we're ahead only by a little bit. The following week, more ballots come in. That's 2 weeks after the election. So now we're even. 3 weeks after the election, more ballots come in, and now we lose. Well, how could ballots come in 3 weeks after the election? That's ridiculous. So we know what happened, and it's very difficult to prove, because every judge in California is probably liberal, and they just say you don't have standing, or they do it for a long time. And that's what happened with Tina Peters. Every one of these judges in Colorado are left-leaning judges. We have evidence. And a lot of people didn't hear the closing thing, what the judge said to Tina Peters when she got convicted. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. Now, can President Trump get her out? 100%. And I think this is going to lead to where he's going to send in the marshals to get her out of jail. Because, President Trump, if he pardoned her and they won't let this happen, President Trump, what he's going to do. The same thing he's doing in Venezuela. He's just waiting it out until, he's going to get rid of Maduro. And, it's going to happen in many countries. The problem in Central and South America is we're getting all these left-leaning people in. And this is how socialism works. They promise you the world. And this is what happened in New York. It happened in Miami. It's happening in many places. They promise you, hey, we're going to bring down prices. Sure, you could promise anything, but and I know, it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, today, we had the report on the jobs, and the jobs are not good. We're down 40,000 jobs in October, November, because, we got rid of a lot of achievers in the government who come in for an hour and then they go home, or they don't do their job, and we're getting rid of them and to save money. I mean, as a businessman, $36 trillion of debt. We have to service that. So if we don't cut the debt, things about them. And it's very funny because I speak to so many families that have, Democrats in the family that can't understand how these people could be so left-leaning. And, it's impossible for them to think about what's going on in this country and letting millions of people into this country. And how many people, you take Illinois, you take Washington, we don't talk about that much, but I hear from people, Oregon, who say, how could these people be getting free health care? You know what I'm saying? Where is this money coming from? It's coming from your pocket. You know what I mean? So let's talk about tomorrow. Again, for the people that would like to come on, you could go to Stern American Rumble and see it live, or you can go to Stern American Rumble and see all the back issues, because a lot of people want to see what's happening. They don't even know about this thing. Or you can go to fstern1054@gmail.com, and I will send you a link to tomorrow's show. Starts at 1 o'clock, goes on to 4:30. It'll be tailed end with Steve Bannon. He's going to come in at the end. Kerry Lake will be on. You said Mike Lindell. We'd love to have him talk about how he's going to win the governorship of Minnesota, which is the worst, another left-leaning state that we have problems with. We're going to have Cleta Mitchell, and she's going to be leading it. I love her because every Friday she has a Zoom with about 80 people of the top people in the country, and we learn a lot. She brings on people, and then I ask her for permission to ask one of the people she has on to come on our show, because I don't know everybody, and she brings on a lot of people, congressmen and AMAC, and these are important things because we need to get these people on. So Peter Tickton will be talking about Tina Peters, and we would love everybody to call the governor and ask for a pardon for Christmas, 303-866-2471. He says, President Trump can't pardon her because it's a state crime. That's baloney. She's a federal witness, and therefore, and this was a federal election, they just made it a state crime because they knew that President Trump wouldn't be able to get her out. But Tickton will tell you how this is going to happen. Steve Gruber will talk about what's happening in Michigan. Marley Hornick, again, will be talking about what's going on in New York and Pennsylvania. Andy Thompson will be talking about what's going on in Nevada. These are states you don't know anything about. We'll bring on Dale Richards from Canada. We love our Canadian friends. We go up there for vacations all the time. We love the area. But Canada is becoming so socialistic that they're shutting down free speech, and that's terrible. Steve Gillen will talk about Project Civica, fantastic in New York, how we got 40 people to run for office and forcing the Democrats to spend money where they didn't do it. Linda Sinkowitz in Connecticut, she does a fantastic job in voterfraud.org. We'll have Emma Robinson, who's on Mike Lindell TV. We'll have Colonel Conrad Reynolds, who's talking about Arkansas. We talk about Arkansas, we think it's all red, but we got a lot of Democrats coming in there and trying to change it. Wayne Root will be coming up with his with all his information. And Kerry Lake has agreed to come on. We hope she makes it because, she's so busy. Kimberly Fletcher will be talking about Moms America to 500,000 people. Steve Bannon, I'm not sure what he's going to be talking about. He's always saying something at the last minute, so we love him. So we have plenty of people coming on. There'll be plenty of information. Again, we're glad to have it. I got only about 2 minutes, and I got to run here because I got to get on another show. I appreciate so much you having me on. I want to wish everybody again a happy holiday. As you hear, I'm losing my voice. I'm sick, but I'm still working. A lot of people say, if you're sick, why aren't you in bed? Well, somebody got to be up there talking about this. You know what I mean? And thank you so much for having me on.
100%. Steve Stern, the CEO of the Flag Shirt, and also doing great things for election security. Huge call tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Steve, also it's Stern American on Rumble to check it out as well. You saw the number, you saw the email address there as well. If you could put that back up, Steve. If you want to be in on this call, just email Steve right there, sstern1054@gmail.com. This is an important call because this is about free and fair elections. And it's not just a bunch of people just talking about, hey, we just need free and fair elections. They actually dive deep into specifics about voter rolls and all the stuff. So, I mean, it really goes deep with these guys. Great job there, Steve Stern. Thank you again, sir. Great patriot, hard worker, for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, so Steve Stern there live. He's doing a lot of live interviews today as he's promoting that call that is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Again, Stern American on Rumble, so check it out. As you're looking live right now at the GOP press conference that will be coming up in just a few minutes on Capitol Hill. It's 9:57. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
All right, good morning once again. Welcome back into Studio B here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Studio A, getting the finishing touches for some renovations. We'll be back in there at the start of the year, but also looking live right now at the GOP press conference that will be starting any minute from now. Again, good morning. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. It is 9:59, Tuesday, December 16th, 9:59 on the East Coast. Looking at Capitol Hill, of course, it is below freezing there in Washington, D.C. Those of you already in that region, of course, you're saying duh. But down here in Alabama, guess what? It was also below freezing about 2 hours ago. I think it was 28 degrees on the vehicle temperature there. So, but for those of you that out there in San Diego and Arizona and Texas, I mean, it's probably a little cooler, but a lot warmer than 28. Anyway, those of you watching in the Central Time Zone and Mountain Time Zone and the Pacific Time Zone, whether this is live or on replay right now, thanks so much. Same thing with you on the East Coast and anybody else around the world that watches here on Right Side. And that is not just saying that. That is something that a number of people, chime in on the comments on Rumble and YouTube and other places saying they were watching from England or watching from Australia or wherever. We've seen all of that over the past several years here. So thank you so much for streaming in. So let's go over a number of topics that are happening today, just to bring you up to speed, as it's now 10 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, 7 out there on the West Coast. We know that Vice President will be speaking in Pennsylvania, but let's start with the beginning. At 10 o'clock, so any minute from now, there's a GOP Leadership press conference. We know that the vice president is on his way to Allentown, Pennsylvania right now in the air, Air Force Two on the way to Pennsylvania. That's going to be a quick flight from JBA, Maryland over to PA in a huge jet. And it's not going to take long. It's going to be probably 25-minute flight, maybe less, maybe a few minutes more, but not too long. So as soon as we see that live feed of the vice president landing, and then when he speaks, we'll take you there live. We'll also take you live to this GOP press conference once it starts. A Vance spokesperson, a Vice President Vance spokesperson, says that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer of the Labor Secretary there will travel with the Vice President, and the Second Lady Usha Vance will also accompany the Vice President to Allentown, Pennsylvania for that speech. Tonight, the President Trump, of course, will participate in a Hanukkah reception. That'll be live here on Right Side. RSBN host Robert McNeely will cover that tonight. Speaking of President Trump, he will deliver a speech on the economy on Friday night in Rocky Point, North Carolina. We'll have live coverage right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to a couple sponsors, and then we'll continue some of the stories that we're tracking here on Right Side. Let's go to monetary gold. Wall Street veterans are sounding the alarm. Many now say that gold could climb, get this, to more than $7,000 per troy ounce. Right now, it's already more than $4,000. And this could happen, this more than $7,000 could happen before President Trump finishes his term. And it's not wild speculation. Experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers are tracking the indicators, the soaring national debt and the unchecked government spending and a dollar that's losing purchasing power by the day. So what's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries, and then they're increasing their gold reserves. And so they recognize the pattern. They know that the paper currencies eventually fail, but gold has remained a reliable store of value throughout history. So you can check it out right there. You can get that free info kit on gold. Call that number there on your screen, 888-617-7994, or go to rsbnforthegold.com, rsbnforthegold.com for that free info kit. So at least get that, get the ball rolling, rsbnforthegold.com. Let's also go to callsheet.com/rsbn. If you're looking to bet or trade or just check out polls, you can do so on callsheet.com/rsbn. You can download the app if you'd like. You can go to the QR code as well. So you have 3 ways of getting to this information. And I believe Call Sheet is also on X if you just want to check out various things that you see when it comes to the polls out there. Right now on the right side of your screen, you're seeing who's going to win that college football championship. Well, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, who knows? Maybe there's another team that will win. But we do know that tonight is the Salute to Veterans Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. So that will be tonight. That's the 3rd bowl game so far as bowl season has kicked off for college football. All right, you're not watching sports programming right now. Of course, this is political programming, but conservative news as well. We do like to talk sports from time to time, especially down here in the Deep South. 10:04 Eastern Time. Let's go to Angel Paste as well. Speaking of the South, let's go to Texas, Spring, Texas. AngelPaste.com. Use that RSBN promo code. Goes a long way for all of the needs when it comes to your product there. So my point is there's a number of products on angelpaste.com. Use the RSBN promo code. You'll get a discount off. You can get all of that at angelpaste.com. They hire military veterans and are a great company and a great longtime sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, so it is 10:04 Eastern Time, looking live on Capitol Hill, and of course, seeing the GOP press conference getting ready to kick off as the press is in the room there. It'll be interesting to hear what the GOP leadership has to say today. Then we'll go to Pennsylvania, where the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will deliver a speech to some patriots in the Keystone State, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then again, tonight, we'll hear from President Trump, who will participate in a Hanukkah reception. Even though it's just Tuesday, just a programming note, Friday night, we'll have live coverage from Rocky Point, North Carolina. I'll be live here in the studio. Robert McNeely, I believe, will be in the field. So we'll have some live coverage for that as well. Here on the network, as we cover the GOP press conference and as we cover the Vice President's speech a bit later in the broadcast, whether it's going to be live or recorded, it just depends on what's live at the moment. We'll have a number of interviews, including at 11:15, Peter Tickton, the attorney for Tita Peters, 11:15 Eastern. He'll join us. Again, if we're live in Pennsylvania with the vice president's speech, we'll record that interview and air that this week. Also, a businessman and church deacon and a patriot, Mark Lynch. He'll join us at 11:30 this morning as he's running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. Looking forward to hearing from Mark, a patriot there in the Palmetto State, as we are looking live at the GOP Leadership Press Conference that's about to start. And a beautiful picture there, live picture there at on Capitol Hill, the U.S. Capitol building. If you remember, back on January 20th, 2025, so earlier this year, of course, much earlier this year, we had the inauguration inside, right? It was inside because the weather was bitter cold. It was awful weather. Right now it's very cold as well. Again, last check is 25 degrees in D.C., but that was about an hour ago that I checked that right here on the air. So temperature rising a little bit, but obviously it's wintertime. It's the Northeast. We get it. All right, so looking forward to all of the coverage today. Thank you so much again for streaming in with us. Let's go into some commentary as we get ready for the GOP Leadership Press Conference. Of course, it's all about freedom versus tyranny, truth versus lies, and we know that one serves good, the other serves evil, and we know what side we're on. We hope that more people will join all of us that are on the right side of history, and it's very common sense. Moral, faith, God, family, country, freedom, all the things, truth, justice, the American way. So that's what we were founded on, those type of values, right? So let's keep them going. Let's keep the freedom of speech going in this country. Let's get free and fair elections, especially in time for the midterms, and then the 2028 presidential election. Who now we know on the Democrat side, Harris is wants to run again. That's what we're hearing, reports about that. We know that on the Republican side, J.D. Vance and Ron DeSantis, these are just polls right now. These are not people that have said they're running for president in 28 yet. These are just polls from interactive polls that I saw from Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen. So anyway, we're just, tracking those kind of polls. We're also monitoring other stories, including that the DOJ has until this Friday, I believe, the 19th, to release all of the Epstein files. That's a story that's factual and out there when it comes to the release by the 19th. Also, seeing the voter reform come to pass would be great. And also, a number of people, and President Trump has spoken about this on Truth Social as well, and he's spoken about it at the Oval Office probably about a month ago, saying that we should be doing more when it comes to prosecutions against those that have come against we the people in our government, have done illegal acts. There has to be receipts and evidence, and it has to go through the court of law, but if we don't take care of business there, then what's going to happen? And if we have another, left-leaning, radical type president, like a Biden of sorts, probably much worse in 2029. So there's just a lot. So that's the 30,000-foot view. If you're just joining us right now, it's 10:09, Tuesday, December 16th. Let's go over some of the programming notes for the day. Again, 10 o'clock or any minute from now, we're going to see the GOP Leadership Press Conference. Today, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will deliver a speech in Allentown, Pennsylvania. That'll be happening most likely within the hour. We'll see. We'll just track whenever it happens. And if we're live, we'll bring it to you. And then a Vance spokesperson, J.D. Vance spokesperson, said that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer will travel with the Vice President to Pennsylvania. They're on the way right now on Air Force Two. The Second Lady, Usha Vance, is also aboard the plane. They'll be going to Allentown for that speech. Tonight, President Trump will participate in a Hanukkah reception. You can catch that coverage right here live tonight. I believe our coverage starts at around 7:45 Eastern, but double check on Rumble and YouTube and X and Truth and all the things, and our app and all the ways to find out. Of course, it'll have that time there for you in your time zone. And then speaking of the president, he will deliver that speech on the economy on Friday night in Rocky Point, North Carolina. So we'll have that live coverage. Let's go now to Capitol Hill.
Well, good morning, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. It's good to see everybody. I want to begin today by addressing this week's tragedy. Because of hate, anti-Semitism, and terrorism, lives were lost in Syria, Australia, and at Brown University. My prayers are with the family of these victims, and I stand with so many who hope the light of Hanukkah drives out the horrific hate that we've seen. Now, turning to the topic this week, which is one of the topics, which is healthcare. Let me begin by being very clear and very honest about the state of healthcare today. The Democrats' healthcare program has failed. And I want to remind everybody, what's the name of the healthcare program? Obamacare. This was a Democrat program, and I'm finally excited to see that the Democrats now have got on board with us that the affordable health care is anything but affordable. So, again, Republicans stand united to fix the problem again. But let's not forget where the root of the problem started. Democrats broke it, we will fix it. And happily to do that. Most Americans can't afford Democrats' insurance plan. The plans are riddled with waste, with fraud, with abuse, and if we're being honest, they only work for one group, big insurance companies. Democrats' health care plan doesn't work. It's never worked. So Republicans are pursuing options that do things a little bit differently. First, we're working to fundamentally lower costs through reforms like cost-sharing reductions. You'll see a common theme, lowering costs versus subsidies. We want to lower premiums for all Americans. Second, we're proposing options that actually expand access to all Americans. When Democrats passed their disastrous health care law in 2010, they promised that if you like your plan, you can keep it. They promised choice. They promised you low costs. Not a single one of those promises were true. Not one. In fact, healthcare premiums have risen over 60% since the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And I ask you this, profitability from the insurance companies are 600% greater since Obamacare. Has your income increased 600%? Ask yourself that. I know mine hasn't. Here's the difference. Republicans are fighting for a solution. Democrats actually want this issue. They want health care to be an issue. Republicans actually want solutions for Americans to bring down premiums, not subsidies. That's why Democrats are refusing to rally around real reforms. Instead, they're embracing the very broken system of which they created. But this has been true all year. Democrats have pushed political issues while Republicans have actually delivered solutions. No one's talking about the border today, right? Why is that? It's because we fixed it. The border's closed. People are safe, but you don't hear anyone talking about that because Republicans fixed it. Republicans delivered bigger paychecks by eliminating taxes on tips, taxes on overtime, taxes on Social Security. Republicans delivered lower gas prices by cutting regulation and expanding permitting reform. Time and time again, Republicans delivered results for the American people, real results. And we're just getting started. When we return in the new year, we're going to see a continued focus and push for lower costs and bigger paychecks because that's what the American people need from us. That's what they want from us. Now, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Marionette Miller-Meeks, who is a veteran and a doctor who's actually been the leading voice here in the Republican healthcare solution. Marionette?
Well, I thank Chairwoman McClain, but also Speaker Johnson, Leaders Scalise, Whip Emmer. It's an honor to stand with the House Republican leadership to talk about one of the biggest issues facing American families today, and that's the rising cost of health care. As Chairwoman McClain said, I'm an Army veteran, I was both a nurse and a physician, and I'm the only member of Congress to have served as the state director of a public health department. Not only is this issue important to me, I started my journey as a doctor because I was burned at 15 years old. So it was healthcare and the need for healthcare that drove what I do today. And I spent my career treating patients and fixing broken systems, solving problems, and I can tell you, thanks to the Democrats' failed policy, which they now admit, our healthcare system went from ill to the ICU. For 15 years, the Unaffordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, has done the opposite of what it promised. President Obama promised to lower premiums by $2,500 and to bend the cost curve down. Has that happened? No. Not in the past 15 years, and it won't happen if we just continue to pass subsidies on to profitable health insurance companies. It doesn't even include out-of-pocket cost. It's not sustainable, and it's not working. Republicans want to lower health care costs for everyone, not just a select few, and not just to continue to subsidize profitable insurance companies. Our plan, the Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act, is the Republican solution to this crisis. It doesn't throw more taxpayer dollars at insurance companies. It puts patients and doctors in the driver's seat. Our bill lowers premiums by 11% by funding cost-sharing reductions the right way, not just through COVID-era bailouts that benefited only big insurers. That's up to $1,871 in savings for families each year and over $36 billion in taxpayer savings. We're delivering real PBM reform to stop middlemen from inflating drug prices. Even in my own state, my PBM transparency bill that passed in 2019 when I was a state senator, one of our counties reported that they saved $80,000 last year through their transparency alone. We want to give small businesses the ability and the power to negotiate better deals. That alone will save taxpayers $2 billion, but most importantly, save small businesses. We're expanding association health plans by allowing small businesses and self-employed workers to team up to expand choices, which result in premiums going down by as much as 30%, even those small businesses that are in the exchanges. As we're strengthening choice arrangements so more small businesses can afford to offer coverage and more workers can choose a plan that fits their lives and their budgets. This is a plan for working Americans, not for profitable insurance companies. It's about lowering cost, increasing access, and restoring sanity to our healthcare system. Most importantly, it is a plan that lowers healthcare costs for everyone and puts patients and their doctors in the driver's seat. Thank you, and I look forward to getting this bill across the finish line and to the American people.
Like our conference chair, I want to start by offering my condolences to the families of the victims of several tragic events over the weekend. The shooting at Brown University that took the lives of two promising young students. The vicious ISIS attack on our service members in Syria that claimed 3 American lives. And finally, the horrific anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Australia that killed 15 innocent people at a Hanukkah celebration. Our hearts are heavy as we grieve the evil that was put on display this past weekend, and we continue to pray for the full recovery of those injured and for the comfort of the families whose lives are now forever changed. Now, turning our attention to the House Republican agenda. This year, Republicans delivered one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in our lifetime. The Working Families Tax Cut Act, passed by the House Republicans and signed into law by President Trump, achieved historic America First victories, such as no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors, an increased child tax credit, and Trump savings accounts for newborn children. 2026 is gearing up to be the year of deeper pocketbooks and lower costs for the American people. Thanks to this landmark legislation, tax refunds could increase by $1,000 per taxpayer next year. That's more money in your pocket for you to invest, save, and grow. Waitresses, law enforcement officers, and parents will have more of their hard-earned dollars to put food on the table and to support their families. Not only did our bill deliver the largest tax cut for middle-class Americans, it also addressed rampant waste, fraud, and abuse in programs like Medicaid and SNAP. As we have all witnessed with the fraud scandals coming out of our state of Minnesota, these programs have long been ripe for fraud. But House Republicans and Donald Trump implemented common sense reforms to strengthen the system to benefit the people who need it the most, not fraudsters who sent millions to terrorists abroad. Which brings me to addressing the failure of my governor, Tim Walz. We anxiously await Tim Walz's response to House Oversight Committee Chairman Jamie Comer regarding what he knew about the $1 billion in fraud. Walz has had 7 years to address and stop the fraud. It wasn't until President Trump made this a national issue that Walz started to pretend that he cares about his constituents' tax dollars supporting a terrorist group in Somalia. Accountability is coming, Governor. Our dishonest, failed governor must and will answer for his complete incompetence. With that, I'll turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Webb. My prayers go out to all those killed in so many different horrible tragedies. I mean, here in America, Brown University, you look at our two Army soldiers that were killed, the anti-Semitic attacks on the other side of the globe. Just remind you, during this Christmas season, this Hanukkah season, it's a special time. It's a time we celebrate, but it's also a time where evil still lurks here and all around the globe. And we just pray for those who have been murdered, harmed, injured. We pray for those who have evil in their hearts, that God can touch them and hopefully remove that evil so that they don't go harm innocent people. This week here in the House, as we finish our work for the year, we're taking up some very important bills. And start with the SPEED Act. We've heard complaints from members all across the country that know that just trying to build things in America, road projects, bridges, pipelines to move energy, anything you're trying to do, more and more laws are getting in the way. NEPA is a heavily abused law that delays a lot of the projects that ought to be built. Bruce Westerman and his committee have done incredible work to bring a bipartisan bill that starts to address the abuses here in NEPA so that we can actually build things in America again. You know, you think about the cost savings that would come if it only takes 2 years instead of 10 years to build a major project. And we all know what's happening all across America, why so many projects are shelved in many cases or take so long to be built because of the abuses of some of these laws, like NEPA, Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act. All of these laws are being heavily abused. So this is a really important first step, getting the SPEED Act passed to get real, meaningful permitting reform. And then, of course, Dr. Miller Meeks talked about her bill, which is such an important step to lower costs in healthcare for all Americans, 100% of Americans. While Democrats only care about bailing out insurance companies and focusing on less than 10% of Americans that are in the Unaffordable Care Act, we're focused on lowering premiums for all Americans. And that's what you're going to see on the floor this week. You know, you think about association health plans, which have been proven to give people more options to lower costs. The Choice Act, which, you know, while everybody complains, they say, why when I watch TV commercials, I see this gecko lizard and I see the emu and I see all these other animals out there selling health, they're selling car insurance, they're selling homeowners insurance. Why aren't they selling health insurance? Well, that's because the laws at the federal level prohibit the ability for people to have choices to get people trying to offer them lower cost products for health insurance. Imagine if, for example, with Choice Act, where you can run through a health savings account, the ability where if you get your health insurance through your employer, if you're able to go find a better plan, if somebody could compete for your business and offer you a lower deductible plan, with lower co-payments for your families. Right now, you can't go buy that product. Well, we create those options with the bill that we're bringing to the floor tomorrow, the PBM reform that Dr. Miller Meeks talked about, where you can actually have lower prescription drug costs, again, for 100% of Americans. This is something that our three committees of jurisdiction have been working on for a long time. And yet, while Democrats only want to bail out insurance companies while premiums go up, we're focused on having lower premium options, lower cost options for 100% of Americans. So another busy week where we're going to be focusing on helping families that are struggling under the weight of all the damage that President Biden did. President Trump is working to lower costs. President Trump wants to see these bills on his desk, and we're going to work to deliver here in the House. And if I don't see you between now and then, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
I rarely get to raise the podium, but I'm going to take the opportunity this morning. Thank you, ladies. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Dr. Miller Meeks for joining us on what is our last leadership press conference of the year. And I just want to say to all of you, press corps, thanks for being here each week and covering all of this. It's been a hugely historic week and year in so many ways, and a hugely consequential Congress, and you've had a lot to cover. So we do, as everybody has said, wish you Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and hope you get some well-deserved rest over the short holiday. Since Congress reopened following the end of the Democrat shutdown, the longest in American history, Republicans have passed, since we came back, 41 pieces of legislation, and of course, as you've heard this morning, we're set to pass even more. Chief among them is the Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act. It is aptly and appropriately named because that's exactly what it's going to do, as everybody has explained this morning. If you recall, Democrats shut the government down and kept it closed for 43 days so that Chuck Schumer could get political cover from the grassroots of his party. Remember that he had voted for the same CR just several months earlier in March. When the same vehicle came forward, he suddenly changed his tune, and that is because he caught a lot of political backlash for it. So he decided instead to shut the government down and fight. Well, everybody saw how obvious and how dangerous that gambit was. And so the Democrats tried to spin their selfish political decision to claim the whole thing was always about, quote, fighting for health care affordability. But that claim never made any sense because it ignores the very simple facts of the situation. It is the Democrats' Unaffordable Care Act that broke America's health care system, as has been recounted this morning. And it's the Democrats who have refused every good faith Republican effort to fix it along the way. Now, this is 15 years into this saga that the American people have been drugged through because the Democrats decided 15 years ago to break the system. They insisted when they passed the Unaffordable Care Act that it would reduce premiums, it would provide more choice and higher quality and all of that. And none of that ever happened. In fact, quite the opposite effect is what we have seen. All this was foreseeable, and that's why Republicans didn't support it. Premiums have skyrocketed, the quality of care has plummeted in so many places and in so many cases around the country, and fraud is absolutely rampant in the system, and it is costing everyone dearly. Yes, there is a health care affordability problem in America. It's a very serious problem for almost every family. But it is an indisputable fact that the Democrats caused that problem, and Republicans are the ones having to clean it up. For 15 long years, Americans have now faced skyrocketing premiums, fewer quality choices, inefficient care, and widespread fraud, waste, and abuse. Benchmark premiums on the Obamacare marketplace for every plan, listen to this, they've increased 80% overall since 2014. And they're continuing to rise. The Unaffordable Care Act marketplace has resulted in lower quality plan offerings and less consumer choices to date. Fraud is absolutely rampant. Paragon Health is one of the analyst groups, and they estimate there's over 6.4 million people who are improperly enrolled in the Obamacare exchanges. And a recent GAO study, the Government Accountability Office, found some staggering facts. It proved what we all know intuitively about the fraud that's involved in this program. They found that Obamacare's subsidy system lacks even the most basic guardrails to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. And I think that study is something that you should all dig into. It should be on the front page of every newspaper because it is shocking and alarming. Over the last 2 years, for example, the investigators at the GAO, Government Accountability Office, they did a little experiment. They in 24 different cases, they applied for Obamacare subsidies. They did it fraudulently by intent. So 24 applications with no Social Security data attached, none of the information that's necessary to actually apply, no citizenship proof attached, and none of the income documents and all the things that they're supposed to be applied and included in an application. Now, guess what? Out of the 24, 23 of them were approved. And they've been paid tens of thousands of dollars, some of them as recently as September of this year, the GAO tracking all of this fraud, wondering, hoping if anybody will ever pay any attention to it and stop it. That's not the only thing they found. The report also found that in 2023, 29,000 Social Security numbers were used by multiple persons. In 2024, 68,000 Social Security numbers used by multiple people to bilk the system, to defraud the system, and to take dollars to themselves. You had, in one case, there was over 120 individuals using the same Social Security number to get these benefits, and it was never stopped. The GAO also found that more than $94 million last year alone was sent to insurers on behalf of people who were already deceased. It's a serious, serious problem in the system. It's why the costs are so high. And this is the system that Democrats in Congress want to extend without any reform. We just can't have that. The Washington Post summarized all this best in one simple sentence. They said, quote, "The real problem is that the Affordable Care Act was never actually affordable." That's the problem. America's healthcare system should be the envy of the world. Instead, it's the most expensive in the world, and the American people are not getting any healthier because of all this madness. A new Gallup poll released yesterday found that 70% of Americans have a negative outlook on our healthcare system for all the obvious reasons. All Americans deserve a healthcare system that puts patients first, one that meets their needs with more access, more choice, and more affordable quality care. And House Republicans have offered legislation to begin fixing what is broken and to restore integrity to our nation's healthcare system. And it's so long overdue. The Lower Healthcare Premiums for All Americans Act, which will be on the floor tomorrow, is the first big step in that regard. As has been noted by Dr. Miller Meeks and the other leaders here, it offers common sense solutions to lower premium cost for everybody, all Americans. It expands access to quality care. It provides every American with more options and flexibility to choose coverage that works for them. And it brings greater transparency to America's healthcare system. And here's how. The bill has 5 key reforms. I'll just reiterate some of this real quickly. It reduces premium cost through cost-sharing reduction payments. It brings pharmacy benefit manager transparency and removes the hidden cost of prescription drugs. It allows small business owners and independent workers to form association health plans. It provides more choice for employees to customize their health care plans, and it protects small businesses from costly regulatory overreach. According to the latest CBO projection, Republicans' cost-sharing reduction payments, just that provision alone, would reduce premiums by at least 11% and will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars, about $30 billion. Contrast this with the Democrats' proposal. Now, what is their proposal? The Democrats' subsidy proposal would only lower premiums for a small subset of people. Now, think of this. Just 7% of Americans would benefit. When they passed the COVID-era enhanced subsidy, enhanced premium tax credit, okay, it would only affect, and only did affect, 7% of the American people. If it was extended today, if their gambit was done and without any reforms, and they expanded it for 3 years, which is what they tried to do in the Senate, and they failed last week, and what they would try to do in the House, if allowed, that would only reduce, for the 7% of Americans, it would only reduce their cost by 5.7%. Okay, this is not some solution to the problem. It's just adding more money. It's further subsidizing a broken system, and the subsidies go to insurance companies. They're not trying to solve the cost problem. They're trying to hide that, and it's not the way to fix it. It would also, by the way, cost taxpayers, if the subsidy was extended, would cost American taxpayers $350 billion over the next 10 years. Again, the proposal doesn't lower health care costs in any way. It only hides the true cost of the failed law. And I'll remind you, CSR payments are not a new idea. In fact, in 2017, the thing that we're going to put on the floor tomorrow, a big part of that, 196 House Democrats, many of them still in Congress, wrote a letter in support of that very idea. Exactly what the Republican bill this week will accomplish. Now, they won't tell you that this week. I'm certain they're all going to vote against it. Why? As was said here many times this morning, they do not want a solution. Democrats do not want a solution. They want an issue in the upcoming election. And they think that the media will go along with this and that people will buy it. That, oh, their heroic effort to extend this COVID-era subsidy that they themselves created and that they themselves put the expiration date on at the end of this year, they're going to try to convince you that that's all health care wrapped into that. Remember, it only affects 7% of Americans, and it would only reduce their cost by less than 6%. Democrats also had a chance to support our provision in the working families tax cut in the big, beautiful bill. But House Democrats voted against it, and the Senate Democrats stripped it out. That cost-sharing reduction reduced everybody's premiums by almost 12%, and the Democrats fought to take it out. This is something that we're going to do this week. The Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act is going to accomplish exactly what the title says. If it becomes law, premiums will decrease, access will increase, and every American will have more options and flexibility to choose the coverage that works best for them. It's called the free market, and we're the ones that advance those ideas. More options and lower costs. That's what the American people demand and deserve, and it is only the Republican Party that is presenting any ideas to do that. The Democrats want to keep subsidizing a broken system. We're fighting for that, and we will. I'll just close with this. In 2025, as I said, was a marquee year, a landmark year. I want to remind you all there's something noticeably absent from our end-of-year duties here. Normally, or at least in the past before I became Speaker, we would all be here with so much angst and drama and everything about the dreaded end-of-year Christmas omnibus spending package. You have not been able to write about that for now the third year because we broke the fever. We both broke the Christmas omnibus fever, and we're getting back to stewardship and regular order, and we're very proud of that. The third consecutive year, we've avoided that terrible congressional Christmas tradition, and we're getting everything working here again. Fixing the appropriations process has been a goal for me and this leadership team. It's been a goal for Chairman Cole at Appropriations and his leadership team, and we're well on the way to rebuilding that muscle memory. House Republicans have shown up every day and delivered real results for the American people, and we're going to continue to do so. We are excited about the years ahead. We look back now on what we've done all this year. We obviously passed the Working Families Tax Cut, the big, beautiful bill, the most significant piece of legislation that Congress has considered in my lifetime. Stephen Miller's had a quote that summarized it pretty well. He said, quote, "Each and every one of the individual titles in that bill will be considered one of the greatest achievements in the history of the conservative movement." They are conservative policies, but they benefit every American, and everyone will be seeing and feeling the effects of that in the first and second quarter of next year when all that becomes implemented. Here's, by way of reminder, real quick, legislation included the largest tax cut in American history, permanent extension of the reduced estate tax, Medicaid program reforms, expansion of SNAP work requirements, increased border enforcement and funding, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, increased standard deduction for seniors, tax-free savings accounts for every child born in America, business tax provisions to incentivize investment and innovation and broaden the pathway out of poverty for more people. Wages will be increasing and costs will be going down. Many of these landmark provisions are set for implementation in the first, second quarter, as I said, and all boats will begin to rise. Just last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent predicted $100 to $150 billion in new tax refunds, between $1,000 and $2,000 per household. And most of the estimates say that the average American household will have their take-home pay increase by at least $10,000. These are real, tangible benefits that this bill is going to offer to tens of millions of American families, and we're excited about what's ahead. It's just one more example of the many positive and transformational outcomes that we're going to see going into the next year. So far, House Republicans have passed 413 bills this year. We've codified 68 of President Trump's America First executive orders. We've repealed 23 Biden-era maddening regulations under the Congressional Review Act resolutions. We clawed back billions in wasteful spending through rescissions and opened numerous investigations into President Biden's failed administration. And we look forward to continuing all that work when we return in 2026 and we go into an epic midterm election cycle. With that, I'll take a few questions. I'm going to go to Bill Maloogian. What you doing on the front row, man? Glad to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ahead of Jack Smith's deposition tomorrow, there's a new report out this morning that DOJ is getting ready to hand over Congress a batch of emails, specifically to the House Judiciary Committee. And in those emails, they allege it says that the FBI warned the Biden DOJ that there wasn't probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago. Are you aware of this? Are you expecting to get these emails later today? What's your response?
I've heard as much as you just reported there, and I have not had an opportunity to review any of that yet. But it would verify and I think affirm much of what we understood from the very beginning. As you all know, I used to serve on the House Judiciary Committee before I was made Speaker in October of 23, and we spent a lot of time uncovering just the complete and total weaponization of the Department of Justice under the Biden administration. They used it to go after political enemies, and chief among them was, of course, Donald J. Trump. And they abused the system, and to me, the great harm of it all was that they really eroded the people's faith in our system of justice itself. I mean, that's the most dangerous thing. If people don't believe that our justice system is actually equal justice under the law, that Lady Justice is actually still wearing the blindfold, that everybody gets the same treatment under the law, it's a really serious challenge for a constitutional republic. And so this is some shocking revelations to a lot of people. It's not to us. We understood that this was happening the whole time. The evidence, I think, and I expect will verify all of that. And there's going to have to be appropriate accountability. I mean, accountability is key here. It's important because if you're going to restore the people's faith in the justice system, you have to show them that there are serious consequences for people like Jack Smith who abuses that system. We have to ensure it doesn't happen again, and we'll see how all that unfolds, but it's going to be a very, very interesting, important development. Yes, ma'am, second row. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. This morning, Congressman Mike Lawler said that it was political malpractice to not allow a vote on the ACA subsidy extension this week. What's your reaction to that, and will Republicans suffer any political blowback for not allowing something like that to come to you as moderates?
Well, Mike Lawler is a very dear friend and close colleague of mine. And ironically, weekend before last, I was in New York in his district on Long Island, and we were campaigning together, ensuring that he gets reelected. Mike Lawler fights hard for New York, as every Republican in this conference does for their districts. The districts are different. They have different priorities and ideas, but we do have, there's about a dozen members in the conference that are in these swing districts who are fighting hard to make sure that they reduce costs for all of their constituents. And many of them did want to vote on this Obamacare, COVID era subsidy the Democrats created. We looked for a way to try to allow for that pressure release valve, and it just was not to be. We worked on it all the way through the weekend, in fact, and in the end, there was not an agreement wasn't made. Now, everybody was at the table in good faith. And I certainly appreciate the views and the opinions of every member of this conference. But I will tell you one thing they will all join in unity on is voting for this bill that we've been discussing this morning. Because, again, instead of just trying to assist 7% of Americans, this is for 100% of Americans. And we can handle that and do that together. I hope that Democrats will come along with us. If they're serious about solving the problem and bringing down cost of health care, they'll all fully support it as well. But I think you're going to see they're playing politics with this. Back row, yes, ma'am.
Last week, President Trump said that his legislative agenda is essentially done. So why should voters vote for Republicans in the midterms if there's nothing left to do legislatively?
Well, I don't know which comment you're referring to and in what context, but I'll tell you, I talk to the president sometimes multiple times each day. He and I and his team and our teams work around the clock. Literally, the president and I will talk sometimes at midnight and then again at 6 a.m. I mean, this president doesn't sleep. He's working all the time. The agenda is aggressive. There is much more to do. I think what he's sometimes when he's taken out of context on comments like that, he's referring to what we accomplished with the Working Families Tax Cut, the big beautiful bill, because there's so much in that a lot of people said, wow, you guys checked all the boxes. Well, we did, to a certain extent, but there is so much more to do. And we're going to have a very aggressive legislative agenda coming right out of the gates in January. We're going to continue to work, for example, on health care, to continue to bring costs down for the American people, to bring down the cost of living overall. You're going to see an aggressive affordability agenda, and we're going to see continued codification of the president's executive orders. He's up to about 200 of those. Probably about 150 of them are codifiable by Congress, and we're working steadily through that list. You're going to see us delivering for the American people while the effects of that giant piece of legislation that we did on July 4th, got signed on July 4th, comes into implementation. So much more yet to do. And the president and I talk about that almost every day, and he's excited about it, and I am. Yes, sir. Front row.
So
yes.
there's a lot of Republicans who would still like to see health savings accounts set up as an alternative to the premium tax credit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, why is that not in this bill? Is that something that's still on the table?
Very much on the table. The president likes the policy as well. I see my doctor colleagues here. Yeah, Dr. Miller Meeks is nodding in agreement. The Docs Caucus the Doctors Caucus in the Republican conference works on these things, and I think we could get broad consensus on that. What we anticipate going into the first quarter next year is possibly in a reconciliation package or in regular order as standalone. Ideas just like this. We have a long list of things that we know will reduce premiums, increase access and quality of care. And again, we're the only party that's going to be bringing that forward. The Democrats have zero ideas, zero concepts, and zero legislative plans on anything they'll propose other than just subsidizing the broken system. So there's going to be a stark contrast between the two parties. That'll be a big part of it, and I think you'll see a lot of that discussion going forward. Yes, ma'am. Last one.
Follow up on that. Here, at the end of the year here, people have already enrolled in their health care plans. You guys were out for 2 months during the shutdown. Why has it taken until the end of the year to start addressing, putting to the floor these health care bills? And what is your message to those who are going to see their premiums rise next year anyway, because it seems unlikely that Congress is going to be able to get something together by then?
The health care bill on the floor tomorrow is right on time. There's always a good time to reduce premiums for health care. And remember, the Republican Party, since the Unaffordable Care Act became law 15 years ago, we have been working steadily, producing ideas, trying to address this. We tried to repeal and replace it, as you all know, in our ultimately failed attempt back in the first Trump administration at the end of 2017. The famous John McCain thumbs down tanked the effort. And since then, the roots of Obamacare, the Unaffordable Care Act, have gotten so deep in the system that it's no longer possible to just pull it out at the root and chop it off and start over. It's too deeply ingrained, and so now we have to take it step by step to reduce cost and repair the system, and that's the ideas that we have. You're talking about the longest shutdown in U.S. history. The Democrats did that. Remember, when we reopened the government, we ended in the exact same place that we began. They didn't get a darn thing out of it, and we knew that they wouldn't, and that's how it'd come out, and they did it for political purposes. When they took us off the field effectively for 43 days, as soon as we got back, let's remember, because history's being revised here every day, we got right back to the appropriations process, remember, which was so critically important, and all the other measures that we were pushing through. We got done on that steadily through the year, and then we turned the attention to health care, knowing it was coming at the end of the year on the subsidy and that new ideas would be presented. We didn't start this in October, November, or December. This is something the Republican Party has been working on for years. I've mentioned in here before, when I was chair of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus of Republicans in Congress, we had 158 members back in 2019, and we produced a 2-volume set on conservative common sense solutions to fix health care. We've never been able to get the votes to fix it because the Democrats have been unwilling to go along, and you can go back and look at the record and show over and over all they want to do is continue to throw taxpayer dollars and subsidize the broken system. The reason the premiums are up 80% since the bill was passed by the Democrats in 15 years ago is because they're further ingraining a broken system. So it's up to us to fix it. This is one piece, one part of that. And in the first quarter, January, February next year, you're going to see much more activity of this. The American people's attention is on health care for the obvious reason. It is a very serious problem. But remember this, the Democrats broke it, Republicans are going to fix it. I wish you all a blessed holiday. Thanks so much.
All right, so you just heard from the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, there on Capitol Hill. That was that 10:30 GOP press conference, actually 10 a.m., started about 10:15. Good morning once again, and welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez, looking live there at bitter cold, below freezing temps there in Washington, D.C., at least at last check a couple hours ago. Definitely a cold day. Of course, it's winter time. You could expect that. Let's go from Washington, D.C. We're going to head out to Pennsylvania in just a little bit. Soon, we're going to hear from the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He'll deliver a speech in Allentown. We're told that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer will be accompanying the President, Vice President J.D. Vance there in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Also, the Second Lady, Usha Vance, will be there as well. So again, that's going to be coming up here in just a bit. So as soon as we see a live feed in Allentown, we'll take you there live. We'll watch that speech together. Also tonight, the President will participate in a Hanukkah reception. So President Trump at the White House tonight for a Hanukkah reception. And speaking of the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief, he will deliver a speech on the economy on Friday night in Rocky Point, North Carolina. You can catch that coverage right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, as we are, of course, tracking a ton of stories all the way around conservative media across this country, across the earth. If you guys saw yesterday, we were just straight up news mode, reported all of the things that have happened, the tragedies abroad and here in the States. And we've been reporting about that as well as waiting and awaiting any more details out of Colorado for Tina Peters, the Patriot there. So at 11:15 this morning, the attorney for Tina Peters, Peter Tickton, will join us here live. And then at 11:30, businessman, Deacon, and the Patriot Mark Lynch will join us live as he's running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. So a number of live interviews over the next 30 to 40 minutes. But that all depends as well on the Vice President. As soon as we see that speech start or we see a live feed from there, we'll take you to Pennsylvania and we'll record those interviews and air them this week. So we'll see what happens. We'll kind of track it and monitor it here as we are live. All right, so if you're just joining us now, of course, we started out with the GOP press conference there on Capitol Hill, and then the CEO of the Flag Shirt, Steve Stern, joined us for a solid 20 to 30 minutes talking about this huge precinct strategy election call that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. A number of big names will be joining that call, including Carrie Lake and others, really to talk about our elections. Obviously, voter reform is needed in the United States of America. We don't have a voter ID. That's the first thing that should be taken care of. That should be taken care of hundreds of years ago. Our country is 250 years old, almost. We should have taken care of that a long time ago, basically. So hopefully we'll get some voter ID, same-day voting, paper ballots, proof of citizenship. Securing our elections for a free and fair election is really what the name of the game is. And it's our right as citizens of this country to say we want this person to represent us at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and there should be no one tinkering with or doing fraudulent acts when it comes to any ballots and all of the things that we saw in 2020. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy as we await some of those live interviews in the meantime. You see 10% off right there. Always good to save money, always good to have great products, and including medication like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and on. Because, you know, here at RSBN, we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices, and that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing those flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. You know, they encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness strikes. So, of course, during the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. This is when, unfortunately, everyone can get sick. So the question is, why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? Enter All Family Pharmacy. They have everything your family might need: antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even emergency kits and supplements, so vitamins as well. all doctor reviewed and delivered straight to your door. So while you're out doing some of that holiday shopping over the next 9 days or so, as Christmas, of course, is about 9 days, right? 9 days from now. There's nothing wrong, of course, with adding a few essential medications your family might need. You can stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this holiday season. If you visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, use that RSBN 10 promo code for that 10% off as well. Let's go to Cove Pure. Cove Pure is a great sponsor, a great product. I love this product because I don't like tap water, and anything that makes the water taste better and is healthier, I'm a big fan of. And also right here, covepure.com/RSBN. So this is $250 off right now for a limited time for the holiday sale. So you can drink pure, live pure, Cove Pure right there. Now, 99.9% of stuff that you don't want to be drinking gets taken out of your water. So it's healthier to drink it. It tastes better. Great combination, right? Also, if you want cold, warm, or hot water, right there, you press the button, you get it done. Great looking, sleek product as well. So go ahead and make this purchase for yourself or your friends, family members, Christmas time, Hanukkah, whatever gift that you'd like to purchase. This is really a good one to keep in mind. $250 off for this holiday sale. covepure.com/RSBN. It's 1056. Let's also go to one more sponsor, Venice AI, a beautiful display for Venice AI. So just go to venice.ai/RSBN or look up the app, Venice AI. This is an awesome, awesome product. Let me tell you more about this product because, ChatGPT and a few others out there can now reference your past conversations, but not with Venice AI. It lets you use this AI without handing over your sensitive information. It utilizes leading open source AI models to deliver text, code, and image generation to your web browser. So there's no downloads or no installations of anything. They don't censor or spy on you. Messages are encrypted and your conversation history is stored only in your browser. So if you have, looking for a personal assistant, but virtually in the sense of AI, you have one right there and a number of other features there that you can check out. I checked this out the other day, pretty cool stuff. Check it out yourself if you like. Venice AI, great sponsor. Here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We're approaching the bottom of the hour. You just heard from the GOP Leadership Press Conference. We're covering the news, right? And of course, there's commentary, there's editorial, there's all the different things that we're thinking and feeling. You've heard plenty of that over the years here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And there's a time and place, of course, for commentary and editorial. But this week, as you guys know, if you watched yesterday at all, the amount of stories that have happened that are tragic overseas, here at home. It's been tough to just go over. I think there was about 10 to 15 stories, breaking news and developing news that has happened in that 24/7 news cycle within the past week. Everything from Australia, where Jews were celebrating Hanukkah and an Islamic terrorist and his son were shooting and killing, I believe it was 15 people. Then you come here to Brown University, and 2 students were killed there as well by a gunman. That gunman, I believe, is still on the loose. So that's another story. Then, of course, we saw the story about the actor and director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle. The suspect is Nick, their son, being killed in Los Angeles. Then you have stories in Georgia and New York, both stories of attacks against women. In Georgia, a woman had acid poured on her after she was went to a church service. She was at a park sitting there and somebody poured acid on her. She's alive. That guy, obviously, the suspect, I believe, caught as well. So we have these different stories that are happening out there. We want Tina Peters to be free. We want to see secure elections. We want our freedoms to be restored. On Friday this week, December 19th, the DOJ's deadline for releasing the Epstein files. I mean, there's just a lot going on. But within that framework, we're obviously covering the events of the day. So let's bring you up to speed on that as it's approaching that 11 o'clock hour on the East Coast. I believe that would be, 8 o'clock out there on the West Coast. So thanks so much for watching from coast to coast, including the Central Time Zone, Mountain Time Zone. A lot going on. Beautiful pictures there live, though, in Washington, D.C. right now. So soon, we'll take you from Washington and we'll go directly to Allentown, Pennsylvania for a speech. The vice president will be speaking there. We also heard that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer will be speaking there as well. The vice president will have the second lady accompanying him as well, Vance. Tonight, President Trump will participate in a Hanukkah reception. We'll have that live coverage tonight right here on Right Side. And then on Friday night, we know that the president will be speaking in North Carolina in Rocky Point. We'll have boots on the ground there, and we will also be live here in studio for that wall-to-wall coverage, as you guys can expect. When I was in Pennsylvania just the other day with a photographer, it was bitter cold, but you know what? Who cares? Because at the end of the day, speaking to we the people, hearing what the Patriots had to say up in Pennsylvania, hearing from the president about the economy, you know, it's coverage you can count on when it comes to Right Side Broadcasting Network, all sorts of live coverage. And again, there's times for opinion and editorial as well, and we can always share that as well. So thanks so much for streaming in. As soon as we see that live feed from Pennsylvania, we'll take you there. In the meantime, we have a couple live interviews coming up within this hour, but we'll see if we're in Pennsylvania for the vice president's speech. We can record those interviews if needed. But in the meantime, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's 11:03 Eastern Time, Tuesday, December 16th. We are 9 days away from Christmas, so hopefully you're getting close to getting that Christmas shopping done. Some people get it done really early. Some people wait till the last second. Who knows? Hopefully you get it done, though, as we get ready to celebrate Christmas and, of course, those celebrating Hanukkah as well. You know, obviously that terrorist attack, that radical Muslim attack that happened in Australia. Unbelievable video and images there. And then in Syria, 2 Iowa National Guardsmen have lost their lives and a U.S. interpreter. It's really tough to go over all of these stories, but we see some positive things happening, like Andrew Wolf, the West Virginia National Guardsman, starting to recover really well after another incident in D.C. That happened. You remember with Sarah Beckstrom, who's looking down from heaven because 2 people there getting shot by that another radical Islamist. So it's tough to see it. Now in Australia, if the reports are true, one of the guys that is a hero that jumped onto one of the terrorists and to take his gun away. I know that he's Arab. There's some reports that he's a Muslim as well. So, you know, you look at the psychology of all of this. You see radical Islam, and then you see those that are not radical, maybe secular, maybe brought up as Muslim, but they don't do what the radical Muslims do. It's just a crazy thing to look at and to talk about, because we see what's happening out there in the country and other countries as well. The mass migration, where there's a ton of crime that happens from people that may profess that faith. So but even outside of that faith, we see the crimes happening in various parts of this country as well that are not Muslim. So it's not one. I'll wait until there's an expert to bring on the broadcast to have an interview with. But I'm just sharing my thoughts here on the fly, because it's just again, telling it like it is always something I think that is what we want to see out there in this country. We want people to tell it like it is. We don't want any of the filters. We don't want any of the people that are bought and paid for. And so that's why, me being in mainstream media back in the day, in local news, that kind of thing, there weren't as many conservative media opportunities. And when the time was right, I said, you know what, I got to get out of this. So thank God for conservative media and places like Right Side Broadcasting Network and other podcasters and networks and all of the things that are out there, because we have to speak that true narrative. We got to keep that in the light. And this is the information that places like China wouldn't allow you to speak about. You won't be able to speak about God, family, country, and freedom of speech and all of that. And in some places in Europe, it's like that. Some places all around the world, it's like that. And that's, at the end of the day, the whole thing that we are really fighting for in this country. For those of you that love God, family, country, the Constitution, freedom, all the things, truth, justice, the American way, common sense, all of those things, the everyday American. I consider myself an everyday American as well. I don't, just because, it's all, suit and stuff, whatever. But I am happy to speak on behalf of my family and me as a citizen and you, we the people out there. It takes a decent amount of courage to do this. You know that, but you're speaking out too. And if you aren't, well, it's up to you, but it's time to really realize what we're dealing with. We have to have free and fair elections. We have to have our country fully saved, and we're looking forward to seeing that happen. We hope it will. We are a resilient nation. We are a tough nation. Our American spirit, remember, 1776, the Constitution, come on now, right? We're not just going to give it up. So we're looking for those free and fair elections. We want to see that voter reform. So speaking of that, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Stern American on Rumble, or there's a number of ways that you can probably watch it, but it's a precinct strategy meeting. It's all about elections. And they've been having these meetings for a long time. I used to join these Zoom calls every month for at least a year and a half. And then obviously with other things going on, I can't always do that. I'm going to try and jump on that call tomorrow. Mike Lindell, Carrie Lake, Cleta Mitchell, on and on and on, all these great people. But also, it's not just conservative star power. They dive into all the things when it comes to elections and voter rolls and all the things that you might not understand. I don't understand all of it, but I'm learning it because it's part of our due diligence here in this country to make sure that we understand that there can be the voter rolls can be cleaned up, that we can have poll watchers. Like, what's a precinct committee man or precinct committee woman? What is that? What is a free and fair election? What does that look like? How do we get that done? What pressure do we have to put? Where do we have to put the pressure? Do we even need to put the pressure on? We know that President Trump is fully aware of it. He's been speaking about it. So we're just looking forward to as many wins as possible for this country. So anyway, if you remember earlier, I was talking about, there's news reporting and then there's the commentary editorial. Well, we jump back and forth here a little bit. All right, it's 11:09, Tuesday, December 16th. We have a couple live interviews coming up here on Right Side. As soon as we see the Vice President live from Pennsylvania, we'll go there. He is going to deliver a speech in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Those of you that have ever been to Allentown, I believe the water park, I'm trying to remember on the fly what it's called. It'll come to me. But anyway, a great park there, amusement park outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Obviously my hometown in PA, so anybody watching, family or friends, hello to you. Thanks so much for streaming in. And those of you watching all across the country, thank you so much. Soon, again, the Vice President will be speaking in Allentown. And we're told that Congressman Ryan McKenzie and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer will travel with the Vice President along with the Second Lady, Usha Vance, to that trip. So most likely we'll be hearing from the Labor Secretary and Congressman McKenzie before we hear from the Vice President. Tonight at that White House right there, President Trump will participate in a Hanukkah reception. And then the president later in the week, Friday night, you can catch the coverage right here on Right Side, Rocky Point, North Carolina. We'll have some live coverage as well for the president's speech. Meantime, awaiting any more details on the release of Tina Peters. So we're going to talk about Tina here in just a minute. Peter Tickton, he's the attorney for Tina Peters. He's joining us in 5 minutes. And then at 11:30, if we're still live from the studio, if we're not in Pennsylvania live, it just depends on the timing, we'll have businessman and patriot Mark Lynch. He'll join us. He's running for U.S. Senate in the Palmetto State in South Carolina, so he'll join us here shortly. So it's 11:11 a.m. Thanks again for watching here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's take a look at some of the news that is happening now. I'm going to check Truth Social. I'll check X. And of course, anything that we receive here at the network, we can report on that as well. Homeland Security posting just minutes ago that they are grateful to our TSA officers for their continued service to our country. Secretary Noem has rewarded TSA officers who have not wavered in their service to the homeland with $10,000 bonuses. $10,000 in bonuses for TSA out there. For those of you that fly, you know, it's great that there are people that are checking the bags and all of that. There are many that, you know, do a great job. There are some that are a little, you know, it's a little rough around the edges out there. You know what I'm saying? Telling it like it is. But hey, you know what? It's good to have security. And I know that the president's been asked by a colleague of mine if there will ever be a privatization of TSA. So will that be something that we have? Who knows? But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, if you're flying this holiday season, safe travels to you. Get that TSA pre-check if you'd like. I think it's $85 per, I think it's every 5 years. And you're able to get through the line a lot quicker. So it's called TSA pre-check. Always good for traveling. And of course, our crew will be heading to North Carolina for Friday night's coverage. So we're looking forward to all of that. All right, so we're about 3 minutes away from that interview. Let's go back into some commentary as we await our interview. And also, we have that live footage coming up from the Vice President. The DOJ has until Friday to release the Epstein files, to fully release them. We'll monitor any new federal prosecutions in an effort to hold people accountable. And finally, awaiting any concrete measures to secure our elections. Because we know that, you know, all the great things that are happening when it comes to the border and a number of other things, law and order, can be reversed by another president coming up in 28, 29. So we got to make sure that we get concrete reforms this term for the future of our country. So we have to win those midterms, win that presidential election, make it too big to rig, but hopefully we won't even have to use that, you know, that slogan, as there would be things in place throughout every state that it would secure our elections. All right, let's go to one more commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network, looking live in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Vice President J.D. Vance will be speaking there shortly. As soon as we see any speakers take the stage, we'll take you to the Keystone State. In the meantime, let's go live now to Peter Tickton, the attorney for Tina Peters. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been talking a lot lately, so tell us what's the latest for Tina.
Well, she's still in solitary confinement. And there's no end in sight to the fact that she's there because until we can get her out, of course, because they are concerned about her safety, or so they say, and that's where they put her. Now, when you look at Tina Peters, I know a lot of people don't understand what that situation is, but basically the same as J. Sixers to a great extent, she is also a political prisoner. And I can show you that because, I mean, here you have a lady that was convicted at age 69 of at best what we call white collar offenses. I mean, there was no violence, nobody was hurt, it didn't cost anybody a dime, there was no restitution to be made, and yet she was given a 9-year sentence. And that 9-year sentence, of the one place in Colorado, there's 2 women's prisons, and one of them has 1 unit in it, which is for the maximum security type of people, you know, what some people would call the monsters in society, the people that need to be in prison in order to protect the rest of us. And why in the world is she there? Why was she in unit number 3 when she could have been put into unit one of the other units that would have been safe? She's not only put in that unit, but then there's 1 cell in that unit that's for those that are really being discriminated against in one way or another. She's put into the cell. Their own rules say they have to be at least 28 square feet. And this cell is 21 square feet. You put 2, the beds in there, and then standing next to the bed, there's like 1 foot for a person to stand. Why is she put into this 1 cell that everybody can see is smaller? So it basically is a message to the other prisoners that this is somebody who's not high ranking at all, not somebody worthy of respect. And then they bring in somebody that is supposed to teach GED. Instead, they teach Tina Peters. They teach that she's guilty and she's a bad person and so on, and making the other ones hate her and endangering her.
What a welcome. Good morning, Lehigh Valley. It is such a pleasure to be here as your United States Congressman. I'm Ryan McKenzie, and I was born and raised in this local community, and then I'm raising my family here, and I have to tell you, it was exciting to land at ABE on Air Force 2 with our Vice President, J.D. Vance. We get to tell him about the Lehigh Valley. We get to tell him about our rich history and our people in this region that have known resilience over the years. They have built our nation's skylines. They power our economy, and they deliver innovations for the future. But for decades, we've also been on the front lines of Washington's failures. Think back to where we were at the end of the last administration. The people had just gone through the highest inflation in history. We saw rents in Allentown and Bethlehem surge by 40%. Gas prices in our area reached over $5 a gallon, and household debt skyrocketed. Failed economic policies, a war on American energy, wide open borders, and America last foreign policy from the Biden administration. It was all taking a toll on our community and the working people right here in the Lehigh Valley. President Trump and J.D. Vance walked into an Oval Office in January to find one of the worst messes in American history. But we understood the mission. You sent us to Washington to do the hard things, fix the damage, and deliver for the working people of America. So we got to work. We had a border that was wide open with over 10 million people coming through illegally during the Biden administration. Massive amounts of drugs, human trafficking, gun smuggling. People said it couldn't be fixed. Well, this administration has brought illegal border crossings to the lowest level on record, and we in Congress back them up with funding to do that. We had conflicts spreading all across the world. We were humiliated in Afghanistan, and our nation and our reputation on the world stage was one of retreat. But under this administration, we've done what America does best: lead. We established a peace plan for the Middle East when everybody said that was not going to be possible. We got tough on our enemies, and we've restored American leadership. To back up the administration's work, we just passed a new defense budget that delivers funding to modernize our military, rebuild our strength, and give our service members the pay raise that they deserve. We also had an economy where energy costs were hitting families hard, with gas prices soaring and our nation going hat in hand to dictatorships around the world for oil. We were told the only way to get out of that situation was by making sure that we banned gas cars, that we had ridiculous cap and tax schemes like the one that Governor Shapiro was pushing here in Pennsylvania that would have driven up our energy costs significantly. They also tried to fool us and tell us that these things were called the Inflation Reduction Act. We know that was another failure. But this administration, the Trump administration, has unleashed American energy production like never before, achieving record highs in oil and natural gas output, driving down gas prices nationwide, and restoring our position as the world's top energy producer. Again, we in Congress are backing them up by reducing permit times and slashing red tape. Now let's recap. During the last 11 months, with this Congress and this administration working together, we have now been able to secure the border, have a stronger nation, a safer world, an energy revolution that is going to bring down costs for everyday Americans. It's incredible. On issue after issue, the administration has delivered on its promises in a way that no administration has done in memory. And we're pushing ahead with our plans to build an economy where prices are more affordable, wages are higher, and working families can thrive. When seniors said they were struggling after 4 years of Bidenomics, we delivered a new $6,000 bonus deduction, eliminating taxes on Social Security for 88% of seniors. With renters and homeowners struggling because of high prices, we have worked to stabilize our economy, which means interest rates come down, and we also passed what is the largest investment in housing affordability in decades, which will pave the way for over 1 million new, high-quality, affordable housing units right here in America. When tipped workers said they wanted to keep more of the money they earned, And when overtime workers said they didn't want to get punished by the IRS for 60-hour work weeks, we passed sweeping tax relief on tips and overtime. And when I said that working families needed relief and the cost of raising a family was out of control, we got to work. I introduced legislation during my second month in office that would raise the child tax credit, and you know what? We went out and did it, permanently raising the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,200 indexed with inflation so that families can grow and survive right here in our community. Add on top of that new savings accounts for children that are funded with $1,000, and you see how we are investing in the future. When every American said they needed more tax relief, we stopped the Democrats' push for the largest tax increase in history and instead cut taxes for every single American. This is what happens when you have a Congress and an administration that puts America first. When we put workers, families, and small businesses first, we know that we can succeed. This is the alternative to the last administration that was America last, funding their special interests and making sure that nobody could actually get ahead. As we continue this work, we will make sure that the real results Americans deserve, higher wages, more domestic investment, and greater affordability are delivered every single day. Now, there is more work to be done. There is no doubt that it takes a long time to roll back all the failures of Bidenomics. But we aren't going to quit until the job is done, and we're going to get it done because we have a president, a vice president, and a Congress that is putting America first and the American people first. I just want to say again, in closing, what an honor and a privilege it is to represent the Lehigh Valley, my home community. You have given so much to me over the years, and I look forward to giving back to you every single day that I'm in office. Thank you again for being here. Merry Christmas, everybody. God bless, and God bless the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez DeRimmer.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lehigh Valley. Good morning, Pennsylvania. It's an honor to be with you here and with the Vice President right here at Uline. As your 30th Secretary of Labor, I get to work alongside some incredible people, including your dedicated Congressman, Ryan McKenzie. Let's give him another hand. Nice job. I just want to say, Ryan, you're doing an excellent job. I know that you are fighting tirelessly to support the President's pro-worker agenda, and I cannot thank you enough for that. You know, I actually kicked off my 50-state tour, America at Work, listening right here in Pennsylvania earlier this year as we started with the backbone of American manufacturing for a simple reason. It's important to the President to build the golden age of the American industry. And that starts by hearing how your actions and our actions are impacted daily in Washington, D.C., and how it affects your lives right here at home. President Trump and Vice President Vance understand that too. They trusted me in this role because I promise to listen to the voices of the forgotten working class. I've hit 36 states, and what I'm hearing from coast to coast is a fresh sense of optimism. People are taking pride in their work again, and pride in this country, because they know we have a strong America First leaders back in the White House who finally have their backs. And common sense. Thanks to President Trump and the common sense did you write my speech? And the common sense policies of this administration, the golden age of America is on the horizon. Under Biden, workers lost over $2,900 in purchasing power as inflation rose faster than wages. But under Trump, inflation is coming down and real wages are back on track to increase by nearly $1,200 after his first full year in office. Trump's deregulatory efforts are saving $180 billion or $2,100 per family of four. And let's not forget the largest tax cut in American history. I was a former member of Congress, and I can tell you that was the biggest piece of legislation they will probably ever vote on in this lifetime. And it's for the support of the working family, the no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. And thanks to the working family tax cuts, a family of four in the state of Pennsylvania will see $7,000 to $11,000 more in take-home pay. That is their money that they earned, and it should stay in their pockets. We're reversing Biden's cost of living disaster that hurt so many working families, dropping of drug prices, gas prices at the lowest in 4 years. Jobs are coming back online, and people are finally getting off the sideline. The labor participation rate is going up. We want more people to be looking for jobs and in the workforce. We just received the jobs numbers this morning. A positive 64,000 jobs were added under this administration. Here's a number to note that I think is very important, and I want you to remember this. And at your next rally, I want you to go say this. Under President Trump, 687,000 jobs have been in the private sector and have gone to native-born Americans. We have a master negotiator in the Oval Office, that shouldn't be a surprise to any of you, who is putting America interests first by striking the new trade deals to restore the U.S. as the world's manufacturing superpower. More than $18 trillion have been committed as investments into this country to hire thousands of new Americans and thousands of new jobs. Made in America is back. U.S. exports are up 6% over the last year, and the trade deficit continues to shrink. President Trump is leveling the playing field for American workers, manufacturers, creating an economy that works for you, not against you. I can tell you, at the Labor Department, we remain laser focused on putting American workers first. Under President Trump, all job gains have, as I mentioned, have gone to American-born workers. Employed today, 2.5 million American workers more than when he took office. The Department of Labor is investing in skills training and educational pathways to help the workers get their foot in the door without that needy 4-year degree. Not everyone will receive a 4-year degree, and that is pride back in America. My dad was a Teamster. I know what it was like to work hard. I know what it's like to build something with your hands, and that's what America needs. They need to know that it's okay to make a 6-figure income with a trade school, be a tradesman or woman, be a craftsman. That's what we want here in America. You all know that the future of this country won't be forged in the halls of these woke universities. It'll be at the hands of the skilled worker. We recently awarded $86 million in industry skills funds to prepare the American worker for those in-demand jobs of the future. President Trump set a goal. I talk about this all the time. 1 million active apprentices across this country. And since he has taken office, we have registered more than 300,000 new active apprentices and registered over 2,400 new programs at the Department of Labor. You know, I partnered with Secretary McMahon to help administer the CTE programs and create a streamlined federal education and workforce system. Nearly 70% of 4th and 8th graders are not proficient in reading. The current top-down structure is failing our kids, and so we're going to dismantle the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and give the autonomy to the states and send those dollars so that we can have a direct line for the in-market demands of what the jobs are and having the skilled workforce and draw the line from A to B. It's that simple. Get these workers in the workforce. It's what they want each and every day, and we're bridging that gap for those labor market shortages so that you can have mortgage-paying jobs. Listen, as I wrap up here, I want to emphasize to all of you, it's an honor to defend your shot at the American dream. No matter your background, the industry, President Trump's Department of Labor has your back. And that's why you are so special to me, and it's special to be here today. Getting to see thriving family-owned businesses like Uline that started from the ground up. That's the American dream right here. And I'd like to now introduce who embodies that dream. He serves the American people with a deep understanding of what hardworking men and women in this country are up against and what they are capable of. He embodies the same tireless work ethic that built our great nation. He and the Second Lady share that with their children, and in turn share that with America's children. Our Vice President knows that the true heartbeat of America isn't in Washington, D.C. It's right here with you. He's doing an incredible job to help revive our manufacturing sector and ignite our economy. And it's an honor to work with him to put you, the American worker, first. Please join me in welcoming the Vice President of the United States, Mr. J.D. Vance.
Thank you. Wow, it is great to be here in Pennsylvania. It's a good day. Anytime you get out of Washington, D.C., and I got to tell you, I want to go to the bar and drink whatever these guys over here are drinking because they are having a good time. They're having a good time. I want to thank a few people before I get started here. First of all, I'm so honored to be joined by our wonderful Second Lady, Usha Vance, my lovely wife, Usha. I want to thank our great Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez DeRimmer, who's doing an amazing job, and she's focused on something that I think is very much close to the heart of our great workers here in Pennsylvania, which is this very simple idea that you ought to be able to raise a family and earn a good wage even if you don't go to college. We don't want to force everybody to go to college. We want to empower people who want to work with their hands to earn a good wage and do a good job, and she's fighting for that every single day. Lori's doing a great job. We have got our great Congressman, Ryan McKenzie. Ryan, please stand up and say hello to everybody. Ryan is doing a good job in Washington. He's got a great heart for the people of this district. He's only been in town for a couple of years, maybe only a year now, right? That you've been in Congress. And you see it all the time. You see it with Democrats and Republicans. Sometimes people go to Washington and forget who they serve. Not Ryan McKenzie. You are very lucky in Pennsylvania to have one of the good ones. And Ryan is helping us every single day fight for American workers. I believe, young man, shouldn't you be in school? We got a great young patriot over here. You ought to come up and take a photo afterwards. But I also want to give a shout out to Treasurer Stacey Garrity. Stacey, thanks for everything that you do, and thanks for being here today. Where is she? There we go. And of course, finally, to all the employees and the management, the good people of Uline for making it possible to be here. This is a massive facility, and I think that it speaks to what's going on in the United States of America under the past 10 months of Donald J. Trump's presidential leadership. Under this president, my friends, we are building again. We are investing in the United States of America again. You heard our Secretary of Labor talk about it. 61,000 jobs added in the month of November, and that's not all. We saw private sector wage growth grow at a rate of 4.2%. You know what that means? That means we're seeing the fastest private sector wage growth that we have seen in this country in many, many years. And we're doing it by having a president and an administration that believes in you and fights for you. That is what we're trying to do every single day. Now, I will say, as excited as I was to be here this morning, I remember when I got off the airplane, and it is cold. And, you know, like a good gentleman, I let my wife come down the steps first, and then I get to the bottom of the steps, and there's a bunch of firefighters from the great Lehigh Valley who want to take a photo with me. And obviously I love our firefighters. I'm happy to take a photo. Now here's the problem. To the right of me is all these media cameras, probably broadcasting my every moment on national television. Some of the fake news gathered with us here today. And to the left of me is these great firefighters. And there before me is a sheet of black ice. And I think to myself, if I walk over to those guys and take this photo, I am going to bust my you-know-what. I'm not going to say it because we have this very bright young man here. I don't want to teach any bad words. I don't want your mom and dad to be mad at me. So I do what any self-respecting man would do in a situation like that. I send my wife to go and take a photo with the firefighters. No, I didn't. I actually didn't. I did it the right way, but I did do sort of the Biden slow shuffle to get over there. I did not want these national cameras to catch me doing anything, you know, because if I wiped out on that runway, you all know that would be national news for the next week. Now, Joe Biden could fall walking up the steps in broad daylight in 80-degree weather. Nobody would mind it, but if me or the president do anything like that, it's going to be plastered all over the news. But now we're here, we've made it, we have not wiped out, and we're here to talk about America's economic comeback. And ladies and gentlemen, we needed an economic comeback in the United States of America. We needed it. When we talk about all the wage growth, when we talk about all the people who are coming into the United States to invest in the American worker, we've got real money, real jobs, and real opportunity. What that means for the state of Pennsylvania is that in just the last 11 months, we're creating 60,000 good-paying jobs for Pennsylvania families, and we're bringing in, just in this one Commonwealth, $100 billion of new investment into this great place. That is real opportunity for the American people. That is real wage growth for the American people. And look, I grew up in a community. I was raised by my grandmother in a community where, when I was growing up, the factories were closing down. And those good-paying jobs, they weren't coming into our communities. They were getting shipped overseas by politicians in Washington, D.C. The President of the United States has set this entire administration on a different course. We are sick of rewarding companies that ship jobs overseas. We're going to reward companies that build right here in America and give Americans good wages to do it. And you already see it, my friends. You already see it in some of the numbers that we're seeing. When I talk about what we are most proud of, I probably start with what we've been able to do at the southern border, and we'll talk about that in a second. But right after that is, if you go to the Biden administration, the average American family lost $3,000 of take-home pay through the terrible inflation of the Biden administration. In just 10 months of the Trump administration, the average American family has gained about $1,000 of take-home pay. Now that difference could not be starker. When Joe Biden was president for 4 years, he took $3,000 out of your pocket. And in just 10 months of the president's leadership, we have put $1,000 back in your pocket. That's what that means. And that's just the beginning, my friends. That is just the beginning. Because if you look at what we are doing every single day, you are going to have, and if this doesn't turn out to be true, I'll come back here and you can all tell me I'm wrong. But I'm telling you, it's going to be true. You are going to have middle-class Americans, middle-class Pennsylvanians, some of the best tax season in 2026 that you've ever had. Because if you look at no taxes on overtime, no taxes on tips, when we talk about no taxes on your auto loans if you buy an American-made car, now those are political words. I'm sure you've heard them on TV, but starting with tax season in just a couple of weeks, you're going to see that in your tax refund. That's what that means. More money in your pocket because you've got a president and a Congress that are fighting for you for a change, and that's exactly what it should be. And I got to say, I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised by when the Democrats talk all the time about affordability. Democrats say, you know, things aren't affordable. This isn't affordable. This has gotten more expensive. Drugs have gotten more expensive. Housing's gotten more expensive. And you know what? They're right, and it was because of them. It ain't that hard. If you go back to the 4 years of the Biden administration, why did housing get so expensive, double in price during the Biden administration? It's because Joe Biden let in 20 million illegal immigrants who took homes that ought by right go to American citizens and to the people of this great state. When we talk about why did health care get so unaffordable during the Biden administration, it's because Joe Biden allowed prescription drug companies to take advantage of this country. You know, Europeans were paying way less for prescription drugs than our American citizens. It took Donald J. Trump to haul those pharmaceutical executives into the Oval Office and say, no more. Europe's going to pay more for drugs, and America's going to pay less for drugs because we got to fight for the American people for a change. Why have rents gone down for 4 consecutive months? And I know they're still too high, but why have rents gone down for 4 consecutive months? Because we're starting to get those illegal aliens out of the United States of America. Those criminals, those gang members, those people who are taking homes that ought by right go to the people in this room and your children and your grandchildren. It's simple economics. If you have fewer people, fewer illegal aliens trying to buy homes, that means American citizens are going to finally be able to afford a home again. It's very, very simple economics. When you ask, why is it that we have trillions of dollars of new investment coming into the United States of America? Because we finally got a president who says, if you're going to build in America, if you're going to invest in America, we're going to make it easy for you. But if you're not going to build anything in America, if you're going to try to ship an American job overseas, then we are going to penalize you for doing something overseas that you ought to do in the United States of America. That's why we've got so much money coming in. So if you look at every single affordability crisis that we talk about in the United States of America today, it's because we inherited a nightmare of an economy from Joe Biden. The highest peacetime debt and deficits in the history of the United States of America. That blows the door off inflation. The highest energy prices in the history of the United States of America. We are in one of the great energy regions in the entire world, not just in America, in the entire world. You know why energy prices are lower? You know why gas prices have come down so much? Because we finally got an American president who wants to invest in American energy and American workers instead of green energy boondoggles that are produced overseas. Thank you. So on all these things, my point, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are making progress. And I never forget where I come from. I never forget who I serve. And I know that there is so much more progress to be made. I remember my grandmother in times like this of the holidays. Of course, I think a lot of us remember the loved ones that we've lost. I remember my dear Mamaw, that's what I called her. And I was in a particularly hard math class in high school. And she said, what do you need to do well in this class? My grades weren't so good. And she went out, even though she could not afford even the essentials in life, she went out and got me a calculator, a very expensive calculator, so that I could do well in this math class. I remember what it feels like for American families when you have the government take $3,000 out of your pocket through higher taxes and higher inflation. I know what it's like for a woman who's trying to support a grandson but can't afford her prescription drugs because pharmaceutical companies are taking advantage of the United States of America. I remember what it's like when you have to choose between putting food on the table or getting the prescription that you need to stay healthy. And that is not a life that Donald Trump or I want for the citizens in the greatest country in the world. We want you. We want you to be able to afford the things that you have to give your kids and your grandkids a good life. We want you to check your credit card statement and for that to be an annoyance, something you got to do rather than something that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. We don't want a single parent or grandparent to have to look at their checking account and decide whether they're going to buy food or whether they're going to buy medicine this month. We are fighting for you every single day. And I don't want you to think for 1 second that because Joe Biden gave us the worst economy in the world that we forget it. No, we know. We know exactly what we were left with. We know exactly the consequences that it's caused for so many of our great families all across Pennsylvania. And I promise you, there is no person more impatient to solve the affordability crisis than Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. You know, I hear these guys, I hear these Democrats talk about this as if you were going to fix these problems in a single day. It reminds me of probably the third day in the Oval Office where eggs had gotten so expensive under the Biden administration. And you look, I'm the Vice President of the United States. I'm a very blessed man. But we have 3 little kids who eat a lot of eggs. And so I know the price of a dozen eggs. So the price of eggs got really high during the Biden administration. It was the third day in the White House, and some reporter said, "What are you doing about the price of eggs? Haven't you seen they're so expensive?" And the president's like, "Lady, we've been here for 3 days. It takes a little bit of time to fix something that was so fundamentally broken." And so when I hear the Democrats talk about the affordability crisis that they created, it's a little bit like, you know, Charles Manson criticizing violent crime. Look in the mirror, my friend. You are the cause of the problem, and Donald J. Trump's administration is the solution to the problem that you created. I want to say one more thing here, and then I want to take some questions from the reporters, and then we'll have to hit the road. But, you know, this is such an amazing time to be in Pennsylvania. As much as I complain about the cold, and I do, as much as I almost busted my rear end on the tarmac today, I love being in the great state of Pennsylvania during this time of year. I love Christmas time. I love the beautiful trees. I love the snow on the hill. I love everything about this state this time of year. It reminds me a lot of my home state of Ohio for reasons that you all know well. But here's the thing. During this Christmas time, I think that we got to remember that we have a lot in the United States of America to be grateful for. And I am at the very top of the list of people who have a lot to be grateful for. I'm very grateful to my beautiful wife and our healthy kids. I'm very grateful to have this job, for the trust that all of you have put in me. I'm very grateful that we have a president of the United States who would literally take a bullet for this country, and in fact actually did. But I just ask all of you to count your blessings this holiday season, because there is a lot good out there. There's a lot that we're still working to fix. But I just wanted to say, from the President of the United States, from the entire administration, my friends in Pennsylvania, Merry Christmas to you. I hope your families have a Happy New Year. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Please sit down. Sit down. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. Please. All right. We're going to take a few questions from the reporters, and we're going to start with the most egregious of the fake news. Is that right, Luke? No. We're going to start with the local reporters who have some integrity. So let's start with our local cameraman, and then we'll move on to the fake news if we have some time. Sir or ma'am?
Hi, I'm Jackson White from WITF in Harrisburg.
Hey, Jackson. How you doing?
I'm good. So many Americans are still reporting that they're experiencing high costs of groceries and other living expenses. How does the administration plan to lower those costs, and how long might that take for them to experience those lower costs?
Well, Jackson, as I said earlier, I think the best way to understand this is if the American people had $3,000 taken out of their pocket, it's going to take a little bit of time before they really feel like that money's been put back in their pocket. That just takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work. And I think the best way to do it is, on the one hand, you got to lower costs. That's why that we're lowering regulations on American energy to get gas and groceries down. Now, how does energy connect to groceries? Because if the truck that takes the groceries to the grocery store is paying out the wazoo for diesel fuel, then that means every American's going to be paying more at the grocery. If the farmers who actually grow our food are paying way too much for fuel and fertilizer, that means American citizens are not going to be able to afford their groceries. So if we lower the price of energy, we lower the price of groceries, we lower the price of gasoline, and importantly, we bring good jobs back into this country so that wages go up. That's how you give people a shot at the American dream again. That is our job. That is what we ran on. That is what we promised to do. And after 11 months, again, the average American family is $1,000 richer than they were 11 months ago. Now, if you had $3,000 taken out of your pocket by the Biden administration, of course you're still struggling to get by. Rome was not built in a day, but we are committed every single day to making every single American who works hard and plays by the rules, we want them to get a little bit richer every single day. And we do believe that if we keep on making the right decisions, we keep on investing in the United States of America, we are going to find that the American citizens can afford a good life in their country again. That's our obligation, and that's what we're trying to do.
Good morning, Mr. Vice President. My name is Thomas Shortell. I'm a reporter with Lehigh Valley Public Media. Congressman Ryan McKenzie and a number of other battleground Republicans have been pushing to have tax credit extensions on the ACA. I was curious what your thoughts were on their efforts. Is that something that the administration is behind?
So first of all, just on healthcare costs, if you look at some of the worst healthcare costs for American citizens, the biggest drivers of increased healthcare costs, it is the cost of prescription drugs. It simply got way too high, and it got too high because we allowed other countries to take advantage of it. I'm talking about the same exact drug that would cost $300 in Great Britain or $250 in France would cost an American $5,000 or $10,000. We were subsidizing the entire world's prescription drugs, and no president had the courage to put a stop to it. And Ryan McKenzie has been very supportive on this. Nobody had the courage to put a stop to it until Donald J. Trump said no. We are done getting fleeced on pharmaceuticals. Europe has to pay up so that our great American citizens can pay less. That's the most important thing that we've done. Now, you are right that the health insurance market, the health insurance system is totally broken. It's been broken for 15 years, and we're working with Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, to come up with a solution. You talked about premium support. We think that everything should be on the table, but Democrats and Republicans, they got to work together and put something on the president's desk to sign. Now, I will tell you, we've been involved in probably 10 different health care bills. You know, we've been talking to Ryan about it. We've been talking to my friend Bernie Moreno from the state of Ohio. We've been talking to Susan Collins about it. We've even been talking to a few of the reasonable Democrats who are putting ideas out there. But Congress has got to get us something to lower the cost of health insurance for American citizens. The Obamacare system was broken. Donald J. Trump wants to fix it, but Congress has got to step up here.
Mr. Vice President, thanks for taking my question. I'm Hannah Brandt from News Nation. As I'm sure you know, recent polling shows most Americans don't approve of how the Trump administration is handling the economy. I hear what you're saying, that it's going to take time to fix things, but the political reality is that the midterms are next year. Are you worried that affordability is a political liability for your administration and for Republicans?
Look, I'm not worried about the politics because I believe fundamentally in the wisdom of the American people. When we go out there and we tell our story that gasoline and energy got way too high under Joe Biden's administration, but we've lowered the cost of energy, the American people will understand that. The American people know that. when we go out there and talk about the fact that the affordability crisis that happened under Joe Biden's administration made a lot of Americans poorer, and we're working every single day to put money back in their pocket, I think the American people will understand and agree with that. Of course, they're going to be the ones who make the final decision. But I feel very confident that if we keep wages high, we keep energy prices low, we keep on chipping away at the affordability crisis created by Joe Biden's administration, yes, I believe the American people are going to reward us because the American people are smart. They know Rome wasn't built in a day. They know what Joe Biden broke is not going to get fixed in a week. We got to stay with it. We got to keep on working on bringing good jobs and money back into the United States of America. And that it already has paid major dividends for the American people. It's going to pay a lot more in the year to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is Elizabeth Mitchell from the Daily Signal. The health care bill released Friday by the GOP doesn't include health savings accounts. Are you comfortable with that? And would you like to see the GOP use the special reconciliation process to address health care costs and other affordability concerns?
Well, one of the things the president has said is we have the weirdest health insurance system in the world, where we tax money from all of these great Americans out here, and then we give boatloads of money to the insurance companies. Why don't we give that money to the American people and let them buy insurance that works for them and their families? I mean, if you look at insurance company profits, they have been skyrocketing ever since Obamacare was passed. The insurance companies have done very well under Obamacare. You know who hasn't done well under the Obamacare system of giving boatloads of money to the American people? All of you. That's what's broken about this system. It's good for insurance companies and bad for Americans. We are trying to get to a health care policy that's good for Americans. We don't care. If the insurance companies do well, great. If they do poorly, that's their problem. We are here to fight for the American worker and make health insurance affordable for them. So we're going to keep on working at it. You mentioned one piece of legislation. I've probably read a dozen different pieces of legislation that are floating out there. Again, it's going to come to the point where Republicans and Democrats have to figure out what can be passed together. Of course, the president is going to drive a lot of that process. We're still reviewing some of these legislative texts as they come up. We believe that we can solve this problem. But again, the nature of our system, we're going to work with Congress to make sure we get something that's good for the American people through the Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is Iris Sentner from Politico. President Trump last week gave his economy a grade of A++++. What grade would you give the economy today?
A++++. Look, here's the simple fact of the matter. Again, you have to understand all of this stuff in context. You have to ask yourself, what has the Trump economy been able to build over the past 10 or 11 months, given what we inherited from the Biden administration? Ladies and gentlemen, we had the worst inflation crisis in 50 years in the United States of America under Joe Biden. We had the worst trade deficit in the history of the United States under Joe Biden. We had debt and deficits, the highest in the history of American peacetime in 250 years. What we have been able to do, higher wages, lower inflation, a massive amount of investment and money coming into the United States of America, that stuff is incredible. And that is something to be proud of. What I will say is that given how bad things got under the Biden administration, we are going to keep on working every single day to make sure that Americans feel the benefits of the Trump economy. I am certain that we've already seen great benefits for the American people, but we got a lot of rebuilding to do over the next 3 years, and the president is committed more than anybody to making sure that we do it.
Hi there, Vice President J.D. Vance. This is Rob Manch with 69 News, WFMZ. The jobs report you mentioned this morning, you said 60,000 jobs were added in November. However, it also said 100,000 jobs were lost in October, and the unemployment rate currently stands at 4.6%, which is the highest since the pandemic. So my question is, How do you inspire companies to hire people if people don't have jobs? Income tax cuts aren't going to help them.
Well, first of all, the idea that income tax cuts don't help is ridiculous. If more people have more money to spend in their pocket, that's good for businesses, it's good for families, it's good for everybody. It's one of the ways why we do this. When you talk about 100,000 jobs, you're talking about government sector jobs, and that is in a lot of ways the entire story of what we're trying to do under President Trump's leadership. We want to fire bureaucrats and hire these great Americans out here. That's what we're trying to do. Now, you mentioned, this is an important point, you mentioned the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.6%. I think this is a very, very important point, because you know what that means? What that data shows, you got to get in the weeds a little bit, the unemployment rate only counts the people who are looking for work. So let's say you dropped out of work 2 years ago, you haven't been searching for a job, well, you're unemployed, but you're not counted in the official unemployment statistics. What you're seeing as wages go up, as more investment comes into our country, is that people who weren't looking for work under Biden's administration are getting out there and looking for work in the Trump administration. That's exactly what we want. We want to get people off the sidelines and give them a good job with good pay, and we're seeing a lot of evidence that that is happening under President Trump's leadership. We'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President, Jacob Bogage from the Washington Post. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Unfortunately, I have to ask a bit of an off-topic question from affordability, because news events do intervene, and that is the interviews that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade, and described your transformation from someone who once opposed President Trump to now his vice president as an act of political expediency. And I'd like to give you the chance to respond to that, sir.
Well, first of all, if Susie, I'll trust what you said. I haven't looked at the article. I of course have heard about it. But conspiracy theorist, sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills. You know, I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job. And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So, at least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding. Now, look, I do want to say something about Susie, though, because, again, having not read this article, Susie is a person I've come to know very, very well. And, you know, a lot of you probably ask yourself, what is it like behind the scenes? What's going on actually behind the scenes of the Trump administration? And I'll tell you, the president is exactly in private who he is in public. Like, I'll tell you a little story. Maybe a week or so ago, I walk into the Oval Office and Marco and I are sitting there talking with the president about something. He says, stop. And he looks at our shoes and says, you guys have terrible shoes. So he goes and gets a shoe catalog. Now remember, this is the Christmas season, so the president's got some holiday cheer. He goes and gets a shoe catalog and gets his favorite shoes and orders like 4 pairs of shoes for me and 4 pairs of shoes for Marco, because he's like, you know, we need our vice president or our secretary of state to look their very best. And, you know, then we went back to talking about whatever major, you know, international issue we were talking about. Again, he is exactly in private who he is in public. That's not true of most people in Washington, D.C. It's not. And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really, you know what they are, and you know why I really love Susie Wiles? Because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around. I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you want in a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the President of the United States. And what you want in a staffer is a person who understands they are there to effectuate the will of the American people, and they're there to follow the orders of the duly elected Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the President of the United States, and that makes her the best White House Chief of Staff that I think the President could ask for. And the last thing I'll say is if any of us have learned a lesson from that Vanity Fair article, I hope that the lesson is we should be giving fewer interviews to mainstream media outlets. So with that lesson internalized, I'm going to stop taking questions and just leave you with one final note. And again, it's just a note of gratitude. This is the coolest job I've ever had. Agree with us or disagree with us, I'm sure that every single person in this room made something happen to get me to this job. You went out there and voted, maybe you persuaded one of your relatives to vote, maybe even volunteered or knocked on doors or made phone calls for us. I will never forget that my job every single day is to make it so that you guys can have a safe and prosperous life in this country that all of us love. Thank you. Thank you. We inherited a mess, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to show
Well, some closing remarks there by the Vice President, J.D. Vance. Obviously a technical glitch there. We see the live feed to the White House, but that just happened right at the tail end of the Vice President's speech, saying some very interesting and accurate things when it comes to conspiracy theories, too. It's usually a lot of times with the left-wing media, they always want to call somebody a conspiracy theorist, but the theory is usually right on the money. Not always, but most of the time it seems. But anyway, referring to what the Vice President was just speaking about there. So if there is any other feed that we can get from the end of that speech, we'll replay that or we'll upload it here on Right Side. Again, that's out of our hands. Our crew is in just the other studio room right adjacent to where I am, and I can hear their reactions when that all happened. So that is out of our hands. That was a live feed that went down, and I believe it most likely went down for every network across the country because that is a pool feed. The pool feed feeds out to all the networks, whether conservative media, whether mainstream media, and that's what just happened there. So we have to be rolling with it on the fly here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So again, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, just finishing up there, speaking in outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Meantime, programming note for tonight. The President will participate in a Hanukkah reception. That's at the White House. Live coverage starts at 7:45 Eastern Time with Robert McNeely hosting here in Studio B. It's 12:13. We've been live since, I believe, 9 this morning. So not bad. A lot of coverage here. If you missed any of our live broadcasts, please just, replay it from the top and scroll through as you'd like, as we had a couple live interviews. And also we'll have a lot more tomorrow and through the week, as Friday night, President Trump will be in Rocky Point, North Carolina. We'll have boots on the ground there for that coverage. Again, for all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We do this for God, family, country, freedom, common sense, truth, justice, and the American way. We'll see you tonight, 7:45.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.